Both are candidates to become the Empire's future saint, yet the fates of these two girls are completely different. The gentle white-haired girl Diana is kind and friendly, effortlessly winning everyone's favor with her superior healing powers. But Belle, who also possesses healing abilities, has to give her all just to heal minor wounds, to get everyone's attention focused on herself. Belle deliberately causes trouble with various pranks, only to earn everyone's dislike and disgust, as if you could become a saint. In everyone's eyes, she's nothing but a laughable outcast. Compared to Diana, who shines like starlight, Belle is as dim as the dark night. In this nation that worships God, saints are seen as symbols of the divine, and the children in this orphanage under the temple's jurisdiction all possess various extraordinary talents. Diana and Belle, both blessed with healing powers, are naturally compared to each other. Belle, constantly looked down upon, had once tried hard. She wanted to surpass Diana. Until one day, thanks to her excellent healing abilities, Diana was adopted by Marquis Berlot. A luxurious carriage carried her away from the orphanage. Belle stood at the gate, clearly recognizing the gap between herself and Diana for the first time. Excellence gets chosen, mediocrity gets forgotten. Years passed, and the various hardships at the orphanage caused Belle to completely lose her healing powers. Even her healing eyes that could perceive life conditions disappeared. She thought her life would rot away in a corner. But suddenly one day, Duke Kalis and his son Edwin came to the orphanage, specifically requesting to adopt Belle. But Belle wasn't enthusiastic about this at all. If the Duke knew she had lost her healing powers, he would surely abandon her mercilessly like the previous families, wouldn't he? But when she met Edwin's cold, profound eyes, her heartbeats sped up uncontrollably. He was as noble and radiant as a prince from a fairy tale. "I want this person," Belle blurted out, frightening the priest, who pressed her head down and apologized repeatedly. Just like that, Belle became a member of the Duke's household. Belle was full of expectations for her future life. But what she didn't expect was that aside from the Duke and Edwin, she was still an outcast rejected by others. That day, she accidentally overheard the maid's conversation. The current Diana had not only cured the Queen's illness with her healing powers and successfully been elected as the new generation's saint, she had even become Edwin's fiancé. Hearing this, Belle couldn't bear it anymore. Jealousy instantly consumed her rationality. She rushed forward, grabbed the maid's hair, and cursed loudly. "Diana again? I'm really sick of it!" No matter how she struggled, she seemed to forever live in Diana's shadow. Now she had to watch her take away the most important man in her life. When Belle's jealousy toward Diana reached its peak, a person claiming to be the Crown Prince's confidant found her. "Do you want to stop Diana and Edwin's marriage and seize the position of saint?" The person told Belle that Diana's Marquis family was collaborating with the second prince to assassinate the emperor in a treasonous plot, and handed her an envelope. "This is evidence of their treason. All you need to do is place this letter and poison together at the Marquis's place." Although Belle found it strange at the time, why would they ask her to handle such an important matter? Blinded by jealousy, she ultimately took that step. But Belle never expected this to be an elaborate trap. Diana suddenly vomited blood at the gathering, directly accusing Belle of being the poisoner. Although Belle hadn't actually poisoned anyone, she was caught red-handed carrying the poison as evidence. And the treasonous letter was conveniently found in the room. Thus, she was charged with treason and rebellion. Later, Belle learned that she was merely a pawn in the power struggle among nobles. This was all a conspiracy by the Marquis and Second Prince, exploiting her desperate desire to replace Diana to frame Duke Kalis and the Crown Prince instead. The Duke's family, with their century-long glory, fell because of Belle's involvement. Only when standing on the execution platform did Belle clearly realize how pathetic her life had been, like a third-rate villain in a novel who overestimated her abilities, hastily ending her own life. However, she didn't expect that the world she lived in was indeed a novel. Diana was the beloved female protagonist, and all men related to the plot would fall in love with her, while Belle was a malicious supporting character who envied the female lead. Her only purpose was to highlight the female protagonist's goodness, truth, and beauty. Belle regretted it. She regretted that her brief life was spent entirely in jealousy and hatred. If she could do it over, she would never live like this. But fate actually gave her this chance. Belle looked at her young face in the mirror and discovered she had been reborn. After calming down, she realized that her previous life seemed to differ from the novel's plot. In the original story, the Duke's family didn't fall because of her. Because after Belle was captured, they chose to distance themselves from her to preserve their family. But in her previous life, the Duke's family met their end because of her involvement. Why did this happen? Thinking of this, Belle felt very guilty. Without her, they wouldn't have met such a fate. At this moment, the orphanage teacher suddenly barged into the room. She made Belle copy scriptures. "You're also a saint candidate. Look how excellent Diana is. She was adopted by nobles long ago." "Look at you. Your handwriting is so ugly, how can you compare to her?" Belle recognized at a glance that this was the teacher who loved tormenting her most in her previous life. Seeing Belle staring at her fearlessly, the teacher angrily pushed her down, then began coughing violently. Belle continued staring straight at the teacher because she saw the teacher's life flame had turned blue, and blue represented an incurable disease. This was also one of Belle's talents, the healing eyes that could perceive people's life conditions. In her previous life, she had used this ability to predict the teacher's death, but was confined to the penitentiary on charges of demonic possession. Although she was soon released, when the teacher actually died, she was confined to the penitentiary again. This confinement lasted 2 years, and she gradually lost her healing powers. In this new life, Belle chose silence. She would no longer meddle in others' affairs and couldn't repeat her previous life's mistakes. The teacher glanced at her with disgust and then left. With memories of her previous life, Belle decided to change her strategy. In her previous life, because she was always compared to Diana, Belle deliberately acted worse out of spite, causing her to remain unadopted for a long time. In this life, she must perform well and leave this orphanage as soon as possible. With her previous life's memories, Belle opened her notebook, confidently preparing to write. But he was surprised to find that her handwriting was as illegible as gibberish. What was happening? Clearly in her previous life at the Duke's house, she had studied writing and reading properly. Back then, she would often throw tantrums because she couldn't write well. Every time this happened, Edwin would patiently help her pick up the pen, encourage her to try again, and supervise her practice. The Duke would also often come to check on her studies. Even when her handwriting remained wild, the Duke would gently praise her. Under their caring companionship, Belle gradually opened her heart. She no longer deliberately caused trouble to attract attention, but genuinely considered the Duke as her family. The days at the Duke's house were the warmest memories of her previous life. Belle wanted to see them again, wanted to atone for the mistakes she had made. A week later, everyone at the orphanage was amazed to discover that Belle, who had always been a troublemaker, seemed like a completely different person. She no longer wasted food, persisting to finish everything even if it was hard to swallow. When someone questioned whether she secretly threw away food, Belle suppressed her anger and patiently explained, her kind and friendly attitude leaving the other person dumbfounded. Belle believed that as long as she worked hard to change, she would definitely see the Duke's family again. Suddenly, a teacher rushed over, stuffed a dress into Belle's hands, and told her to quickly change, telling her that distinguished guests had come to see her. Belle felt somewhat anxious. According to her previous life's timeline, she met the Duke 2 years later. She wondered who was coming now. When the door slowly opened, Belle could hardly believe her eyes. Standing there was the Duke's family she had been longing for. For some reason, their meeting had been moved up in this life. Belle tried hard to control her excited emotions. She elegantly lifted her skirt and curtsied. "Hello, I am Belle." The Duke looked at the polite little girl before him, his eyes full of tenderness. Then the priest introduced Edwin to Belle. With just one glance, Belle almost lost control of her emotions. She curtsied to Edwin and greeted him. Unexpectedly, he suddenly leaned closer. "Don't you have something to say to me?" He pointed to himself. "Don't you want me?" These words instantly struck Belle. The memory of their first meeting in her previous life merged with the present. Belle's tears immediately burst forth. Edwin was asked by the Duke to comfort the crying Belle, while Belle fell into confusion. Why would Edwin say such things? Did he also have memories of his previous life? But if he remembered the past, shouldn't he quickly send someone to kill her? Why would he come looking for her again? The priest was still apologizing to the Duke for Belle's rudeness. He thought Belle was frightened into tears by the Duke, who was famous for his iron-fisted methods. Belle couldn't help but mentally retort. The Duke wasn't scary like the rumors said. He was incredibly gentle when dealing with her, and never abandoned her even when she lost her healing powers. At this moment, the priest suggested getting the Duke a different child. After all, Belle had just been crying loudly, which really embarrassed him. But this suggestion was rejected by the Duke. "You must understand, this child is our only hope now. The child you sent before also couldn't cure that disease." Belle suddenly remembered that at this time in her previous life, the Duke's youngest son Joshua was critically ill. The Duke had consulted countless famous doctors to no avail, and finally had to go to the orphanage, paying a large sum to hire Diana to treat Joshua. But even Diana, with her powerful healing abilities, couldn't completely cure this disease and could only try to extend his life. In Belle's 7th year, Joshua still passed away. Belle suddenly wondered why the Duke had now given up on Diana and come directly to her. Did they really have memories of their previous lives? At this moment, the Duke suddenly approached Belle. "Belle, I have another son. He's an excellent child just like you. I want you to treat him." "Are you talking about young Master Joshua? I saw him at last year's orphanage event." In her previous life, Belle had once briefly met Joshua. At that time, Joshua had accidentally gotten injured, and Belle had used her healing powers to heal his wound. Originally, Belle had forgotten about this incident, but now hope sparked in her heart. This was the perfect opportunity to repay the Duke's family. She gathered her courage and confessed to the Duke, "My healing powers aren't as strong as Diana's. I can't guarantee I can cure the young master, but I will definitely do my best. Please give me this opportunity." Belle lowered her head and waited for the Duke's response. "It's not you asking us, it's us asking for your help, you dummy." Edwin's comment surprised Belle into looking up, tears about to flow uncontrollably again. Edwin quickly explained in panic, "Why are you crying again? I didn't do anything." The Duke knelt on one knee and extended his hand to Belle. "Are you willing to return to the Duke's manor with us?" Belle wept with joy. "Of course, I'm willing." Fate had given her another chance, and she absolutely couldn't betray the Duke's trust. Just then, the priest suggested letting the Duke board the carriage first, as he wanted to speak with Belle privately, but was stopped by Edwin. "Just say whatever you need to say here." The priest was somewhat embarrassed, explaining he just wanted to give Belle a few reminders. The Duke agreed and left with Edwin first. Before leaving, Edwin told Belle, "If anything happens, come find me in the carriage." As soon as the Duke and son left, the priest immediately dropped his hypocritical mask. He warned Belle to just treat the patient casually, and as soon as the condition showed some improvement, to return immediately. Belle remembered now. This priest, who always talked about divine love, was fundamentally a profit-seeking villain. He didn't care about the young master's life at all, only worried that if the treatment failed, he'd have to return the huge payment from the Duke. So this had always been the orphanage's unspoken rule, deliberately dragging out treatments without completely curing patients so they could continuously collect treatment fees. Diana, as the orphanage's ace, was the only one qualified to truly heal important figures. People like Belle, unimportant substitutes, existed only to highlight Diana's power. However, even Diana couldn't cure the young master's disease, yet the priest would rather watch the child die than let Belle try. Because to the priest, preserving Diana's reputation as the strongest healer was more important than anything. But Belle didn't intend to comply. "What if I cure the young master's disease?" The priest's expression immediately changed. "Are you possessed by evil spirits? Do you want to be locked in the penitentiary like Ismael?" Belle suddenly remembered that boy who once had miraculous talents but lost his abilities in the dark penitentiary and became mute. The priest threatened Belle. Ismael was possessed by evil spirits, so God took back the blessing bestowed upon him. "But you, Belle, are a saint candidate. As long as you obediently listen, God will bless you even more." Belle had heard these words countless times in her previous life, making her believe that if she just worked hard, she could surpass Diana. Now she finally understood. Those possessed by evil spirits were never these innocent children, but these greedy adults before her. Although angry to appease the priest, Belle still pretended to be obedient. When Belle arrived at the orphanage gate, Edwin had been waiting for a long time. He asked Belle if the priest had said anything to her. Belle suddenly remembered that in her previous life, Edwin had always disliked everything about the temple. But in the end, he still got engaged to Diana, who became a saint. They must have truly loved each other then. Belle struggled to control the sourness in her heart. "Nothing. He told me to treat young Master Joshua well." The carriage arrived at the Duke's manor. Looking at the familiar gray-red building before her, Belle finally felt the real sensation of being reborn and returning. Due to Joshua's critical condition, they went straight to the sick room without rest. The thin boy on the bed was barely breathing, his pale face completely bloodless. For unknown reasons, his skin kept bleeding continuously. After brief communication, Belle stepped forward to examine Joshua's condition. The bandages on his legs were freshly changed but already soaked with blood. Belle suddenly remembered that in her previous life, Joshua's cause of death was heart failure, not blood loss. She focused on Joshua's heart area and saw an orange flame flickering there. Patients with mysterious terminal illnesses would show orange flames. This was a sign only healing eyes could see. Could it be that the prolonged bleeding had made his already fragile heart even weaker? If so, the root cause should be in the heart. "How is it? Can you treat him?" Belle was about to answer when she suddenly discovered that Edwin also had a small cluster of orange flames in his heart area. The feeling was exactly the same as Joshua's. Belle looked at the Duke. There were no such signs on him. Belle understood now. This was a hereditary disease. The brother's illness must have come from their deceased mother. Belle slapped her face hard. Now wasn't the time for bold speculation. Fortunately, she discovered it early. At least Edwin's symptoms were still very mild. The urgent matter was to save Joshua first. Just as Belle placed her hand on the boy's chest, preparing to activate her healing powers, the door was violently pushed open. A man and woman barged directly in. The man was Joshua's attending physician. He greeted the Duke while bringing a large bag of medicinal herbs, saying they were for treating Joshua. Just then he noticed Belle by the bedside. "What are you doing?" Belle was somewhat nervous. "I'm treating the young master." The doctor was angry. "His leg is bleeding. Why are you touching the young master's chest?" Belle didn't want her healing eyes ability to be discovered, but she didn't know how to explain. The doctor completely lost patience, scolding Belle for not understanding anything and only causing trouble. "Your Highness, do you really want this child to treat the young master? Her abilities are probably not even as good as Miss Diana's." Belle looked up. It was Lady Caston, originally a maid to the late Duchess, now responsible for caring for Joshua. In her previous life, she was also one of the people in the Duke's manor who disliked Belle the most. "Your Highness, are you sure you want to entrust the young master to such a person for treatment?" Before she could finish, she was silenced by the Duke. "Silence. Belle is my invited honored guest. I don't want to hear such words a second time. I cannot watch my child die." The doctor still wanted to argue, but met Edwin's icy gaze. "Are you questioning mine and father's judgment?" Hearing this, the doctor didn't dare object anymore. Belle watched this scene with emotion. Edwin was always so calm and rational. "Can I treat him now?" "Yes, I'll start right away." Belle's fingertips glowed with faint golden light. Actually, the healing power within her was vast as an ocean, but she could only release a tiny amount. This was exactly why she had never been able to truly heal others. In her previous life, she was consumed by jealousy and resentment, wasting a meaningless life. Now reborn, she was determined to abandon all negative emotions and truly accept herself. "Please give me strength to heal Joshua." The originally weak light suddenly burst forth. Countless golden sacred rays poured out from Belle's body, illuminating the entire room brilliantly. The powerful force impacted everyone. Edwin peered through his fingers and saw the healing power gathered in the girl's palm slowly merging into Joshua's body. As the light gradually faded, the doctor hurried forward to check. Joshua's leg wounds had stopped bleeding and were scabbing over. Belle breathed heavily with exhaustion. The energy in her body was almost completely depleted, but Lady Caston questioned Belle. "Why hasn't the young master awakened yet? We really shouldn't have let an orphan of unknown origins like you touch the young master." But the next second, Joshua sat up by himself. He rubbed his sleepy eyes in confusion. "Why is everyone here?" Seeing Joshua, who had been dying, regain his spirit, everyone gathered around him in surprise and joy. Belle stood quietly to the side, relieved that the treatment had finally shown results. At this moment, Joshua noticed Belle in the corner. The Duke told him it was Belle who cured you, so it's the pretty sister. You finally came to fulfill your promise. Before Belle could understand what this meant, her vision became blurry. Extreme fatigue made her almost unable to stand. Edwin saw this and quickly stepped forward. "Are you all right? Do you want to rest?" Before he finished speaking, blood suddenly flowed from Belle's nose. Under everyone's shocked gazes, her eyes rolled back and she fainted. In her daze, Belle fell into a memory. This was last year's celebration held by the orphanage for God's birthday. Children with various talents were all displaying their abilities. Every time this happened, to avoid the patients coming for treatment, Belle would hide alone in the small grove. Sure enough, Belle found herself in the forest, and at that time she was treating Joshua, whom she had encountered by chance. It turned out that Belle at that time was already trying to treat Joshua's heart. But her abilities weren't sufficient then, and she couldn't succeed. Then attendants came looking for Joshua, frightening Belle into running away. She didn't forget to promise Joshua, "Next time we meet, I will definitely cure your illness." Belle remembered now. That year, she had encountered the injured and lost Joshua in the forest, and made that promise. She didn't expect Joshua to remember it all along. "Don't worry, I will definitely cure you completely." When she woke up again, Belle found herself lying in bed, with Edwin and Joshua keeping watch beside her. Belle sat up abruptly. She looked at Joshua. Although he had recovered considerably, the orange flames in his heart hadn't completely disappeared. Belle wanted to continue treating him, but was stopped by Edwin. "What are you trying to do? Haven't you noticed your nose is bleeding again?" Edwin took out a handkerchief and gently wiped it, advising her not to push herself. "You've been sleeping for a day. Before treating Joshua, you should worry about your own health first." But Belle was deeply worried. Although Joshua had awakened, the remaining illness hadn't completely disappeared. If treatment was delayed because of her, leading to Joshua's death, the Duke would probably fall into prolonged grief, like in her previous life. Belle explained she could continue treatment, but was interrupted by the Duke. "You can stop the treatment." Belle thought the Duke was disappointed in her, but there was another reason entirely. After that forest encounter, Joshua had told the Duke about Belle treating him. It wasn't until Joshua died that the Duke finally realized his death might have been due to hereditary family disease. He remembered Joshua's words again and finally found Belle after much searching. Belle finally understood why she was adopted by the Duke in her previous life. The Duke was very grateful to Belle and told her to take care of her health. Treatment could wait until she fully recovered. Joshua also hoped Belle would take good care of herself. Having finally met again, he didn't want Belle to get hurt because of him. I object. The doctor, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. The Duke thought he was still doubting Belle's abilities, but the truth was quite the opposite. Belle's previous treatment had completely convinced the doctor of her abilities. Therefore, he couldn't let Belle continue treatment. This would cause tremendous harm to her body. Because while Belle was unconscious, the doctor had noticed that her heart had actually stopped beating. Hearing this immediately awakened Belle's memories from her previous life. In her previous life, she was arrested and imprisoned on charges of murdering Diana, where she suffered inhuman torture. She also discovered another hidden ability of hers. The second prince looked smugly at the heart extracted from Belle's body. Is this God's blessing? Any wound heals immediately, able to continue living without a heart. If the temple knew about this, they'd immediately summon you to be a saint. Belle touched her chest area, and indeed couldn't feel a heartbeat. Had she been reborn, but her stolen heart didn't return with her? If she currently had no heart, what was sustaining her life? Was it really God's blessing, as the second prince said? The doctor speculated that Belle's power overexertion during treatment might have caused temporary cardiac arrest. Although she had awakened, her heartbeat remained extremely weak, almost undetectable. If treatment continued, it would essentially be trading Belle's life for Joshua's. But Belle stubbornly insisted, if I could live without a heart in my previous life, I can do the same now. My body is very healthy and nothing will happen. When I was at the orphanage, I was the healthiest child, Belle argued desperately, but the doctor firmly disagreed. Seeing the two in deadlock, the Duke weighed the situation and stated that they could wait until Belle fully recovered before continuing Joshua's treatment. But before that, you must follow my arrangements. The Duke had the doctor prepare the best supplements to help Belle recover. Belle's eyes lit up upon hearing this and immediately asked the doctor for a valuable medicinal herb, saying it was very beneficial for physical recovery. The doctor felt some pain but couldn't refuse with the Duke present. Although uncertain when she could fully recover, Belle still reminded Edwin to get his body checked. This reminded the doctor of his earlier question. Why did you focus on young Master Joshua's heart instead of his leg during treatment? Seeing the doctor's interest, Belle explained. The young master's leg was treated by Diana for a long time without improvement, indicating the cause isn't in the leg. It's likely a problem with the heart that circulates blood. Seeing everyone staring at her suspiciously, Belle suddenly realized she was only 5 years old now. Such analysis seemed too mature. She hastily added, I read it in medical books. But this made Edwin even more puzzled. Can you really understand them? Of course I can understand a little bit. Following Belle's reminder, the doctor finally realized that Joshua's heart might have problems, and this type of heart disease is usually hereditary. This is why I suggested the eldest young master get his body checked. The doctor carefully recalled, the Duke's family had no such medical history. The problem might lie with the late Duchess. Everyone suddenly understood that Joshua's illness really originated from there. The doctor felt somewhat regretful that he had let Joshua's condition drag on for so long. Now the priority was to examine Edwin's heart and prevent the disease early. To show gratitude, the doctor gave Belle his treasured medicinal herbs. Belle finally felt relieved. The treatment had come to a temporary conclusion. The orphanage sent people to take Belle back. Although reluctant to leave the Duke's manor, Belle had to bid them farewell. Fortunately, her concerns had been resolved. Joshua was out of danger, and Edwin would receive heart examinations. She smiled and said goodbye to everyone. Young Master Joshua, I hope when we meet again you'll still be in good health. Goodbye, eldest young master. Belle boarded the carriage, but Edwin followed and called out to her. Don't call me that. You called my name before, didn't you? It turned out that while Belle was unconscious, she had unconsciously called Edwin's name. Originally, commoners weren't allowed to directly address nobles' names. In her previous life, Belle was hated by others in the Duke's manor for this reason. Belle immediately panicked and bowed to apologize. But Edwin's lips curved into a slight smile. Next time we meet, just call me Edwin. Belle's heart trembled slightly. This seemed to be the first time she had seen Edwin smile. Belle felt a small expectation in her heart, but the future had already changed because of her rebirth. She wondered when their next meeting would be. Belle, as a cannon fodder supporting character in the novel, had actually surpassed the female protagonist and saved the dying young master. The deeply moved Duke's family also decided to officially adopt Belle. Edwin spoke highly of Belle, and in stark contrast, Diana, known as the strongest healer, was helpless with Joshua's condition. The orphanage's response was actually, healing power only works on people who still have life force. If young Master Joshua can't be cured after so long, it only means he's about to die. Hearing his brother being so easily sentenced to death, Edwin broke down. He fell into deep self-blame. If I hadn't persuaded him to go out and play, his leg wouldn't have been injured from the fall. This is all my fault. Despite the Duke's repeated consolation, Edwin locked himself in his room for several days, refusing to come out. Until that day when Edwin suddenly came to find the Duke on his own. But as soon as they met, the Duke keenly sensed that something about his son had changed. Although his face was haggard, his eyes were unusually hard. "Father, I know there's another saint candidate. Let's bring her back to treat Joshua." Edwin had always been a precocious child, but from that moment on, the last trace of childish innocence disappeared from him. Even as Joshua's condition worsened daily, Edwin could maintain astonishing rationality and composure. This was exactly the quality a qualified heir needed, but as a father, the Duke still felt some heartache watching his transformation. The doctor also praised Belle's abilities highly. This girl not only possessed amazing healing powers, but seemed to understand a lot of medical knowledge. It's just that the doctor always felt Belle was somehow special. Those blood-red eyes of hers seemed to see through people's hearts, always giving him an inexplicable sense of unease. "It's not because she took your precious medicinal herbs that you think this way, is it?" But the Duke didn't mind at all. He really liked this child. "Don't you think she's as cute as a little rabbit?" Edwin very much agreed. "I think her eyes are particularly charming. The way they sparkle is like a beating heart." However, Belle had already returned to the orphanage at this time. The priest had a dark expression, questioning why she cured Joshua's illness. The priest threw her a document, an official letter from Duke Callus's manor. The first item was to adopt Belle and sponsor her to become a saint. The second item was directed at the orphanage, due to Diana's previous ineffective treatment. Although the Duke's manor didn't require the orphanage to return the huge payment, they demanded a detailed list of how all expenses were used. While rejoicing, Belle was also puzzled. Since the Duke already knew the cause of Joshua's illness, he could have had the doctor prescribe targeted treatment, or call her for treatment when needed. Why did he specifically want to adopt her? The priest gripped Belle's shoulders tightly. "Didn't I tell you to just pretend to treat him?" Belle hastily explained that she really only used a tiny bit of power, and didn't expect the effect to be so good. This must be a miracle created by God's blessing. Complete nonsense. The priest had completely turned dark. His face was hideous, his entire head surrounded by strange purple flames. "How dare you ruin everything for me? That little brat should have died quickly." Belle was shocked, speechless. Did the priest never intend for Joshua to survive? Belle still wanted to argue, but the priest had her dragged away directly. Belle was locked in the confession room under the pretext of being possessed by evil spirits. Prepare to atone to God. Belle knew very well what awaited her. In her previous life, she was stripped of her healing power in this very place. Now that she had finally been reborn and returned, everything had taken a turn for the better. She absolutely couldn't sit and wait for death. Just like that, Belle was imprisoned for 2 days. Suddenly, strange whispers echoed from within the cell. Belle felt an inexplicable familiarity. In her previous life, she seemed to have heard Diana recite similar incantations. Could it be some kind of ancient language? At that moment, the ground suddenly lit up with a massive red magic circle. The eerie chanting grew louder and louder. Belle sensed that something terrible was about to happen. She wanted to cry out for help, but it was all in vain. Belle was enveloped by a sense of powerlessness. Would her power be taken away just like in her previous life? Just as Belle's consciousness gradually blurred, she suddenly heard a man shouting her name. It was Edwin, now grown into an adult. He swung his sword to break the shackles, rescuing Belle from the death cell. Belle never expected that under such circumstances, Edwin would still come to save her. The two quickly fled, but were pursued relentlessly by the guards. Edwin told Belle to hide first while he led the pursuers away. But Belle feared she might never have another chance. She urgently explained that she hadn't wanted to kill Diana. Nor had she hidden those letters that framed the Duke for treason. Edwin said nothing, only pressed a glass vial into Belle's arms. "This belongs to you, take good care of it." It was actually Belle's heart. Guilt instantly overwhelmed Belle. She felt unworthy of being loved so deeply by the Duke. "Don't think that way, Father has already signed the official adoption papers. As a gift for your 18th birthday, you will always be our family." However, the pursuers still found them. Just as the sword struck toward Belle, Edwin unhesitatingly stepped in front of her, but was pierced through the chest by the blade. Belle frantically rushed forward wanting to heal Edwin, but having lost her healing power, she was helpless, could only watch helplessly as life drained from Edwin's body. In his final moments, Edwin gently wiped away Belle's tears, making his last farewell with the girl he loved. When his heartbeat completely stopped, Belle's emotions finally collapsed. Vast and sacred power erupted from within her, instantly defeating the pursuers controlled by purple flames. Belle wept in her sleep, continuously murmuring Edwin's name. A man gently comforted her. "Don't cry, Belle, you're safe now." Belle struggled to open her eyes. She seemed to see a familiar figure, finally falling into a peaceful deep sleep. When the girl opened her eyes, she found herself being held in the Duke's arms. Belle realized she had been saved. The priest, who was the culprit, hurried over, shocked that the Duke had suddenly appeared. The Duke handed Belle a medicine packet. "This is the medicine you got from the doctor. Keep it safe now." Belle immediately understood. This must have been dropped when she was dragged into the confession room, and the Duke had discovered her plight only after finding the medicine packet left in the corridor. The Duke set Belle down, his gaze sharp as a blade as he stared down the priest. "You'd better explain to me why Belle was locked in this prison." The priest hastily defended that this was an exorcism room. Belle had been possessed by evil spirits after returning from the Duke's manor, and needed to undergo an exorcism ritual here. The Duke sneered and drew his sword. "I think the one possessed by evil spirits is you. Shall I personally perform an exorcism on you?" Just as the blade approached the priest's neck, an aged and authoritative voice suddenly rang out. "What is going on here?" Everyone looked in shock. It was Pope Montanus from the temple. "I heard that the saint candidate has healed your child's illness, so I came specially to congratulate you." The Pope walked slowly forward. Hearing this, the Duke sheathed his sword. "But when I arrived, Belle was locked in prison." The priest hurriedly explained to the Pope, "This is just a room for educating children. Didn't you authorize me to handle all matters concerning the children?" The Pope ignored him, walking directly to Belle and asking gently, "Child, do you remember me?" Belle suddenly thought that perhaps now was a good opportunity to expose the priest's true nature. Belle didn't see any ominous aura about him. Perhaps she could trust him. "I remember, you are the Pope. I saw you when I first went to the temple." The Pope looked at Belle with loving eyes. "Then tell me, what did the priest do to you?" "This place is called the confession room. The priest said that disobedient children are possessed by evil spirits and must be locked here, but please believe me, I have never been possessed by evil spirits." Years of accumulated grievances turned into tears that burst forth. The Pope gently stroked her hair, immediately ordering the priest to be expelled from the temple, and all those involved would be severely punished. Belle had wanted to expose the truth that the confession room stripped children of their abilities, but she had no evidence, and even the Pope couldn't decipher those ancient incantations, so she had to give up. However, it was comforting that such incidents should not happen again. The Duke proposed handing the priest over to the Imperial Investigation Bureau for thorough investigation. Since this matter involved Belle, he absolutely could not stand by and do nothing. The Pope agreed, entrusting the Duke to handle the follow-up matters. Belle watched the Pope's departing figure. White light representing aging swirled around him. This was an irreversible natural law. Belle could only silently pray for him. Before parting, Belle met with the priest one last time. Upon seeing her, he immediately burst into curses, that strange purple flame igniting on his head again. Belle suddenly remembered. This was identical to the flames on the heads of the soldiers who had pursued her in her previous life. Since she had been able to defeat those soldiers then, she should be able to subdue the priest now. "Let me exorcise the evil spirit from within you." As she channeled her power, the purple flames were instantly dispersed by golden light. The priest let out a piercing scream, then collapsed to the ground. The Duke noticed Belle was running a fever and prepared to take her to rest first. But Belle just wanted to leave this place quickly, so she fell asleep in the Duke's arms. When she woke up again, Belle found herself lying in a familiar room. This was exactly her bedroom from her previous life in the Duke's manor. Recalling everything that had just happened, she finally believed that she had completely escaped the orphanage. "Miss, you're awake. I'm Tara. I'll be taking care of you from now on." Looking at this familiar face, Belle's heart was filled with emotion. Tara was one of the few people who had been kind to her in her previous life. Back then, due to lack of security, Belle always acted rebellious. Others avoided her. Only Tara stood firmly by her side. In this life, she must cherish these kindnesses. After washing and dressing, Belle appeared with a completely new image. But during this process, Tara noticed that Belle's figure was too thin and small. Immediately understanding the hardships she had endured at the orphanage, Tara brought the medicine the doctor had prescribed for Belle, so her body could recover quickly. Belle obediently swallowed it all. The bitterness made her facial features scrunch up. "What are you doing?" Lady Caston suddenly burst in and scolded sternly. "Young Master Joshua is waiting. If not for treating the young master, you wouldn't even have the qualification to step foot in this manor. You'd better know your place." Even Tara felt Caston's malice. But considering she was the personal maid of the late Duchess, Belle still chose to endure, avoiding conflict with her. Upon seeing Belle, Joshua immediately waved enthusiastically. "Hello, sister." Confirming that Joshua's condition hadn't worsened, Belle finally breathed a sigh of relief. She first thanked the doctor for the medicine he had given her. After simple pleasantries, Belle began the second treatment. She focused her mind and channeled her power. Golden light flowed rapidly through Joshua's body. This made Joshua unconsciously show signs of pain. Suddenly, a force violently pushed Belle away. "Stop it! Can't you see the young master is in pain? This crazy behavior left even the doctor unsettled. What are you doing? Can't you see we're in the middle of treatment?" Caston held Joshua protectively in her arms, arguing with the doctor. Belle endured the pain and got up from the ground. Her first reaction was to check Joshua's condition. Fortunately, nothing serious happened. Caston continued to blame Belle relentlessly. Who knew Joshua would suddenly tear off the bandages on his leg? The originally gruesome wound had completely healed, the doctor exclaimed in disbelief. At this moment, Belle solemnly told Caston, "As you can see, I have the ability to heal the young master. But the upcoming treatments will still cause him some discomfort, so please, don't let there be a second occurrence of today's behavior." The room fell into dead silence. Caston's face turned iron blue as she was about to retort. Joshua quickly stopped her. "This matter is indeed Lady Caston's fault. When you do something wrong, you should apologize." Caston knew she was in the wrong. Reluctantly apologized to Belle, explaining that she had acted impulsively. Belle also understood her concern. She promised Caston, "I will definitely cure the young master's illness." The doctor also brought out his secret medicinal water. This will make Belle's treatment twice as effective. At this time, Edwin came to visit. Every time Belle saw him, she couldn't help but think of the past from her previous life. She unconsciously gripped her skirt tightly, unable to say the greeting that was on her lips. "Didn't I tell you to just call me by my name?" Edwin helplessly approached. This intimate interaction made Joshua extremely excited. "I want to play with sister too." When Joshua excitedly showed off his healed wound, Belle keenly caught Caston's cold gaze directed at Edwin. Sure enough, just as Edwin was about to examine his brother's injury, Caston immediately interrupted. "Young master, you'll be late for your swordsmanship class." As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere froze. The doctor quickly tried to smooth things over, saying Joshua needed rest and everyone should leave. But Joshua wouldn't let Belle go. "Sister, let's play together." In the corridor, Edwin asked the doctor about Belle's condition, and asked the doctor to take extra care of her, citing that treatment was very draining. The doctor could see Edwin's intentions at a glance. "You seem particularly concerned about Belle." Edwin's ears turned red. "Not at all. I'm just grateful that she's treating Joshua." Looking at Caston's departing figure, Edwin knew better than anyone where her hostility toward him came from. Ever since their mother's death, Caston, as the personal maid, would often stare at the portrait in a daze, pouring all her love into the younger Joshua. And after that incident when Joshua was injured and nearly died while out with him, Caston had harbored resentment toward Edwin ever since. The doctor suggested telling the Duke about this, but in Edwin's view, as long as someone truly cared for Joshua, he was satisfied. In Joshua's room, the floor was covered with brilliant and gorgeous jewels. The boy hung gem necklaces all over his body and danced, making Belle laugh heartily. Joshua put a ring on Belle's finger. "This is my mother's favorite ring, but my hands are too small to wear it. I can only take it out to look at occasionally." So this was Joshua's way of remembering his mother. Belle untied the ribbon from her sleeve, threading the ring to make a pendant and hanging it around his neck. "This way you can see it any time." Joshua threw himself into Belle's arms, thanking her repeatedly, but didn't notice outside the door. Caston's gaze suddenly turned sharp. It was getting late, time to part. Belle clumsily packed up all the jewels, promising Joshua they would play together again next time. Then she noticed the silent Caston nearby, curious about what kind of rift existed between her and Edwin. On the way back, Tara explained the reason for their deteriorating relationship. But in Belle's view, this wasn't Edwin's fault. Seeing Belle's dejected expression, Tara comforted her. Once the young master recovers, their relationship will surely improve. A few days later, the Duke took Edwin to the temple to handle Belle's adoption procedures. Belle stayed alone in her room, thinking, ever since her rebirth, many things had deviated from their original trajectory. Her reunion with the Duke's family had come much earlier, and she had healed Joshua, who would have originally died. But what should she plan for the future? She picked up her pen and wrote on paper. "Live well, absolutely must not provoke Diana. Try not to die miserably. Even if I die, I can't implicate the Duke's manor. To prevent accidents, I must also work hard to become stronger." At this moment, she thought of her lost heart. She wanted to find it back, but had no clues. Belle threw the paper into the fireplace. The moment the flames licked the list, the door was violently opened, and Caston burst in with a group of maids. "The Duchess's ring is missing. Now we need to search her room." The reason was that in the corridor leading to Belle's room, they had found the ribbon from her dress. More crucially, besides Joshua and Caston, only Belle had seen this ring during their last playtime. Tara wanted to stop them, but Belle proactively opened the door to cooperate. Given her current situation, cooperation with the investigation was the wise choice. But unexpectedly, a maid actually found that ring in the wardrobe. Belle couldn't believe it. "This is impossible." She frantically explained that she hadn't stolen the ring. "Then why would it appear in your room?" Faced with everyone's suspicion, Belle was unable to defend herself. At this time, Joshua rushed in to defend Belle. Sister would never steal anything. Caston was busy comforting the crying Joshua, but a young maid shrilly shouted, "The young master has been deceived by her. If she didn't steal it, why would the ribbon that tied the ring be dropped in the corridor?" This statement made Belle suddenly alert. At that time, only Caston and Tara had seen her tie the ring with the ribbon. How did this maid know about it? Faced with Belle's questioning, the young maid became obviously flustered. "I have no grudge against Miss Belle. Why would I frame her? Then let me personally investigate this matter." The Duke and Edwin suddenly returned. The moment she saw the Duke, the young maid's forced composure completely collapsed. She hysterically pointed at Belle. "She's the one who stole the ring." The Duke's expression instantly turned cold. "Belle is family, I acknowledge, and Joshua's lifesaver. You accuse her without evidence. Where does that leave the Duke's dignity?" Edwin stood beside Belle. "Anyone who dares to slander the Duke's people will face the severest punishment." This unconditional trust and protection moved Belle immensely. Under absolute pressure, the young maid finally confessed, admitting that she was the one who stole the ring. Turns out she owed huge debts. To pay them back, she helplessly stole jewelry in the ring, but didn't expect Caston to quickly notice the ring's disappearance to prevent exposure. She framed Belle for it. Finally, the young maid was dragged away. Belle felt lingering fear. If the Duke and Edwin hadn't appeared in time, she dared not imagine what would have happened. Realizing she had wrongly accused Belle again, Caston felt very guilty. She proactively bowed to apologize to Belle, reflecting on how her foolish rashness had hurt Belle, although Belle graciously forgave her. Caston deeply felt she no longer deserved to stay at the Duke's manor. Despite the Duke's attempts to retain her, Caston insisted on resigning. Before parting, Joshua hugged tightly this maid who had cared for him like a mother. Belle also solemnly promised Caston, "I will do everything in my power to treat Joshua, though my abilities are not as good as Diana's." "No, you are not inferior to Miss Diana at all. If I ever meet Diana in the future, I'll tell her she doesn't need to worry about you anymore." It turned out that before this, after Diana came to the Duke's manor to treat Joshua, she would often mention Belle inadvertently, expressing concern about her weak healing power. Belle finally understood why many maids at the Duke's manor didn't trust her abilities. But why would Diana say such things? Was it really out of concern for her? With Lady Caston's departure, the servants at the Duke's manor changed their attitude toward Belle considerably. These past few days, after treating Joshua, she would run to the forest to look for a medicinal herb with pink leaves. In legend, this plant called fairy grass had amazing beauty effects, therefore very expensive. But Belle had searched for several days without success. At this moment, she suddenly heard fighting sounds from not far away. Belle secretly followed, discovering Edwin was conducting sword training. But the next second, his sword was knocked away. Edwin sat on the ground covered in wounds, his gaze fixed deadly on the man opposite. "With swordsmanship like yours, you still want to inherit the title?" In the man's humiliating voice, Edwin was knocked down again and again but kept getting up. "With an heir like you, the future of the Karis Duke's manor is very bleak." Belle couldn't watch anymore. This was completely one-sided bullying. She rushed out and sternly demanded the man apologize. Under Edwin's shocked gaze, raising her small fists to launch a completely harmless attack on the man. "I won't let you talk about Edwin like that. He is the finest ducal heir." The Duke looked at the two people before him somewhat awkwardly. How did the strongest guardian knight Sven end up in such a sorry state? "Because he said very harsh things about Edwin," Belle explained indignantly. But she didn't know that this was all actually at Edwin's own request. It turned out Edwin felt his current abilities were too weak, wanting to become strong quickly to protect what was most important in his heart. And those demeaning words were also part of the training, to teach him to stay calm under provocation. Unexpectedly, Belle lost her composure first. "Belle, do you know about the Shadow Legion? This is a mysterious organization serving the ducal family, mainly responsible for carrying out secret activities. And Edwin wants to gain partial command of the Shadow Legion. He must first defeat Sven, so Sven has also increased the training intensity." Belle finally realized she had misunderstood. Quickly standing up to bow and apologize to Sven, Sven graciously forgave her, while praising Belle's courage in defending Edwin, but he also reminded Belle, "One day this kind of courage will also become a kind of recklessness, possibly bringing disaster upon yourself." Speaking of which, how did you come to the training ground? Edwin's question made Belle somewhat embarrassed, explaining she was actually digging for herbs in the nearby forest. "I saw it in a book. It has pink star-shaped leaves and looks very pretty, but I can't find it anywhere." Edwin pondered for a moment, soon leading Belle to find the target. Belle's eyes lit up with excitement, curious how Edwin found it. It turned out that before Joshua's injury, the brothers often explored in the forest, very familiar with the plants here. At this time, Belle noticed the wound on Edwin's face. "It's nothing. Probably got scratched during training just now." The next second, Belle cupped his face. "I'll use my healing power to make it heal." Edwin's face immediately darkened, immediately pushing away Belle's hand. "No need. Don't you know that using power puts a burden on your body? You always act tough saying you're fine, but have you thought about how those waiting for you to wake up feel when you faint? Edwin's reaction left Belle stunned. After a long while, the girl finally tentatively spoke. "So you're worried about me?" The boy's face suddenly turned red, but he still frankly admitted, "Yes, I'm very worried about you, so please don't do this anymore." Since her rebirth, Belle had always thought about repaying the Duke's family, never thinking that she would also be cared for by someone like this. "From now on, I won't make everyone worry anymore." After returning to the room, the doctor bandaged Edwin's wound and gave Belle the precious herbs she had always wanted. Belle was super excited and also prepared a surprise for the doctor. When she presented the fairy grass she had just dug to the doctor was so excited he became incoherent. "Where did you get this?" It turned out that in her previous life, the doctor had a hobby of collecting various rare herbs. But the only one missing was fairy grass. Belle signaled Edwin to keep it secret, while also curious, is this herb really so precious? Of course, this herb has miraculous effects on the skin. When made into perfume and used, it will make your skin as delicate and smooth as a fairy's. At this time, Belle proposed her idea. "I want to try cultivating fairy grass." The doctor stroked his beard and pondered. "That little bit won't be enough. What if I give you more?" After some negotiation between the two, the doctor finally agreed to help Belle with cultivation. But she was curious what Belle wanted to use fairy grass for. Belle smiled mysteriously. Trade secret. In her previous life, Diana made fairy grass into sachets for sale. But naturally, growing fairy grass was too scarce. Diana could only produce a little each time. But Belle had a method that could generate high profits with very little fairy grass. The doctor was also excited. "However much you want, I can grow for you." Belle was full of confidence for a moment. This world has patients, doctors, and even saints who save the dying. But there's no field of dermatology specifically for women to delay aging and enhance beauty. So Belle planned to use fairy grass to establish the world's first skin hospital. Let the doctor be the director. Belle herself would be the CEO, and from then on live a wealthy life of easy money. Just as she was envisioning her future dream life, the Duke sent someone to fetch Belle, saying there was something important to discuss with her. The man simply fiddled with books on the bookshelf, and suddenly a secret passage appeared on the wall. "Come in, I want to show you something." The Duke held Belle in his arms, walking step by step underground. At the end of the secret passage was the Duke's manor's secret treasury. Only the family heads of each generation had the right to enter. The treasury displayed the Karis family's trophies. There was the Akia sword used by the first saint to defeat demons. Gem rings seized from heretics. Belle looked at these things only recorded in books with some disbelief. However, the Duke brought her before a small bear doll. "This is my gift to you. From now on, it will be your guardian knight." Belle looked at this ordinary doll in confusion. The Duke gently indicated, "Try injecting energy into it, just like when you treated Joshua." As golden light flowed from her fingertips, the little bear began greedily absorbing energy, until its whole body glowed with warm light. The contract was successfully formed. The next second, the little bear suddenly flew out of Belle's arms, gracefully flipping several times in the air before landing steadily, leaving both the Duke and Belle stunned. The little bear waved its small hands. "I'm Teddy Bear, Belle's guardian knight." From that day on, the Duke became a doting father. Not only did he give Belle a more luxurious room, but also kept sending various clothes and toys. The gifts received daily could pile up into a small mountain. Now, Joshua was doing heart rehabilitation daily. The doctor was busy growing fairy grass. With nothing to do, Belle thought of Edwin and decided to visit him. When she pushed open the training hall door with food, she saw Edwin and Knight Sven engaged in intense combat. But unlike the previous training, this time they were using real swords. At this time, Edwin also noticed Belle. He thought not good. The intense Sven was extremely excited. In this state, he was prone to losing control. If he noticed Belle, who knows what might happen? Sven seemed to sense something and was about to turn around. Edwin suddenly shouted, "Do you regret saving my father on the battlefield that day?" Sven's expression instantly froze. "What do you mean by asking this now?" "Just wanted to confirm whether you regret your sacrifice back then." It turned out that Sven had been severely injured and disabled in the leg while saving the Duke. This had always been a pain in his heart. Edwin wanted to use this to attract his attention. Sven gripped his long sword and sneered inwardly, "If you can defeat me, I'll tell you." Noticing Sven's attack posture, Edwin prepared to defend. But the next second, Sven quickly turned around, rushing toward Belle. Belle was frozen in place by this sudden change. Edwin desperately chased, but it was too late. Just as the blade was about to strike down, it was violently knocked away by a force. The Duke protected Belle behind him and glared angrily at Sven. "What exactly do you want to do?" Sven didn't expect the Duke to suddenly appear. He hastily explained he didn't mean to hurt Belle. But this reason was too feeble, and the Duke obviously didn't believe it. At this time, Belle suddenly discovered Sven's injured leg was burning with purple flames, exactly the same as what she had seen on the priest. Edwin protected Belle behind him. Sven's condition was getting worse. He screamed in pain. "My leg became like this because I saved you. You ruined my entire life." The Duke couldn't bear to see his good brother become like this, and was about to comfort him. But the next second Sven drew a dagger and attacked the Duke. The Duke deflected the attack with his sword, but Sven raised the dagger again to stab at the Duke. In the intense struggle, the Duke took away Sven's dagger and urged him to calm down. But Sven seemed determined to die. When Belle opened her eyes, she saw Sven had fallen and was motionless. The Duke looked at his corpse without saying a word, hearing Edwin call his father. The Duke finally reacted and comforted the two children's emotions. At this time, Edwin handed him a note, saying he had found it in Sven's room some time ago. For parents, the most precious thing is their own children. May those who take your precious things also suffer the same pain. Obviously, this was inciting Sven's hatred. The Duke suddenly turned to look at his son. It turned out he had known about Sven's resentment, but had always silently endured it. Back in the room, Belle treated Edwin's wounds. Recalling the purple flames she had seen on Sven, her heart was filled with unease. Learning that Edwin knew about Sven's resentment, Belle asked why he didn't ask the Duke to change sword instructors, because father owes him. The finest knight was helplessly reduced to a sword instructor due to injury. This was also why Edwin had always endured. He had thought that if he just endured a little, everything would pass. But Sven's hatred grew deeper and deeper, until he pointed his blade at Belle, seeing the boy's dejected expression. Belle hugged him with heartache. "Next time if something like this happens, please be sure to tell me." In the blink of an eye, Belle had spent several months at the Duke's manor. Treating Joshua and researching fairy grass with the doctor had become her daily routine. Belle had also gradually integrated into the warm family of the Duke. This day, a carriage suddenly visited the Duke's manor. Belle learned from the servants. Miss Diana from the Betrayal Marquis manor had come. Belle was at a loss for a moment. She looked blankly at herself being carefully dressed by the maids, her heart full of confusion. Diana came to see Joshua, specifically to apologize for not being able to cure his illness before. But why dress herself up like this? Tara smiled and explained, "Of course it's to show your new appearance to your friend." Belle thought about it and felt it made sense. This was a good opportunity to prove to Diana that she had changed. Maybe they could even be friends in the future. When Belle met Diana with nervous feelings, the other party actually gave her a direct hug. "I missed you so much, Belle." Her attitude was so intimate it made Belle uncomfortable. When had their relationship become so good? Just as Belle was about to hug back, Diana suddenly let go. Turning to have her maid Lily bring up a box of pastries. "These are walnut pies I specially bought. Let's eat them together." Maid Lily boasted on the side. Our Miss said Miss Belle never had the chance to eat such good pastries before, so she specially bought them for her to try. Tara was very displeased upon hearing this and immediately retorted, "The chefs at the Duke's manor take great pride in their desserts, so we never eat these random things from outside." Although Belle felt somewhat embarrassed, she still had Tara accept the pastries. After the maid left, the atmosphere between the two alone was awkward. Just as Belle didn't know how to begin, Diana suddenly said in a low voice, "I've always been worried about you, Belle. It's all my fault for not being able to cure Joshua. That's why you were forcibly detained here." Belle was stunned and didn't understand what she meant. "The Marquis told me he said the Duke forcibly detained another saint candidate at the manor, and lied that you had cured young Master Joshua, isn't that so?" No matter how slow Belle was, she could feel Diana's contempt for her. "Why do you think I can't cure him? I'm indeed not as excellent as you, but I also possess healing power. Otherwise, how could I become a saint candidate? Then why do you always hide during the goddess birthday festival? Could it be that you're guilty about your healing abilities?" The disdain in Diana's eyes stung Belle's heart. She just didn't want to be constantly compared to Diana everywhere, but she couldn't say this directly. So she vaguely said, "I just think such places are boring, but I did indeed heal young Master Joshua." Who knew Diana would suddenly lean closer? "Belle, you can be more honest. Did the Duke bring you here because he found you were imprisoned by the priest and felt sorry for you?" Belle's breath caught. How did Diana know she had been locked in the confession room by the priest? The priest cared most about Face. He would never leak this matter. The department responsible for the investigation also chose to keep it secret to maintain the temple's image. Diana's eyes shifted as she said nonchalantly, "I heard it from the Marquis. I didn't expect the priest to be such a person. How surprising." Diana's behavior today made Belle feel completely unfamiliar. Nothing like the gentle appearance from her previous life. Just as Diana was eating pastries, Belle suddenly noticed a small cluster of yellow flames igniting at her throat, a reaction that only appeared during allergic episodes. Belle looked at the pastries on the table with confusion. Could it be that Diana didn't know she had allergies? Should she remind her? But Diana had eaten these pastries in her previous life. At that moment, Diana took out the walnut pie she had brought, inviting Belle to taste it together. When she picked up a piece and put it in her mouth, a sinister smile curved at the corners of her lips. Belle instantly realized something, but Diana's expression suddenly changed, and the flames in her throat exploded violently. Belle immediately rushed forward, trying to get the food out of her mouth. "Spit it out! You'll suffocate!" The commotion attracted Diana's maid, who saw Belle pouncing on Diana, and immediately knocked Belle to the ground. "What did you feed Our Lady? Did you poison her?" These words made Belle feel as if she had fallen into an icy abyss. The scene before her overlapped with her previous life. That day, Diana had the same sudden episode. While Belle was framed for poisoning Diana's cup, ultimately meeting a tragic end by beheading, fear turned Belle's face deathly pale. "I didn't! I really didn't! Belle, look at me!" It was Edwin's voice. Seeing that familiar face, the girl's tears finally burst forth. "I really didn't do it! I know, don't be afraid." The gentle comfort gradually calmed Belle, but the maid remained relentless. If she didn't poison her, how could Lady Diana end up like this? Edwin glared coldly at the maid. "You'd better watch your words, or you can think about the consequences of speaking nonsense." Edwin sent someone to call a doctor and confirmed with Tara that there was absolutely no poison in the pastries. The boy's protection finally made Belle realize that whether in her previous life or this one, Edwin always stood by her side. She had to pull herself together and couldn't always depend on Edwin. Belle took a deep breath and walked toward Diana. "She's not poisoned, she's having an allergic reaction. If we don't treat her now, she'll die of suffocation." Under Belle's emergency treatment, Diana's condition gradually stabilized, while Belle, having overused her healing power, was exhausted. But the maid took advantage of the situation and said, "Since you can heal people, why don't you cure the rash on Our Lady as well?" Edwin glared angrily at the maid. "Your demands are far too excessive." At that moment, Marquis Berlot burst into the room. "My God, Diana, what happened to you? Can you still use your healing power?" Belle's nerves instantly tensed as memories from her previous life flooded back. It was this man who conspired with the second prince to dig out her heart and framed the Duke and Crown Prince with treason charges. In her previous life, the Marquis strongly supported Diana becoming the saint. Could Diana also be part of their plan? Just then, the Duke and Doctor arrived. After examination, Diana was declared out of danger. The doctor praised Belle for her timely and proper treatment, but the Marquis suddenly turned his attack on Belle. Diana was hurt because of her. Shouldn't we hold her responsible? Hearing this, the Duke's face darkened. What does this have to do with Belle? She was kind enough to entertain guests. What wrong did she commit? If you really want to assign blame, why not ask Diana's maid why she doesn't even know her own lady is allergic to nuts? The Marquis gritted his teeth and argued, "How could my maid know that the Duke's pastries contained nuts?" But the Duke firmly stated that there couldn't possibly be nuts in the Duke's mansion, because his youngest son was also allergic to nuts. So this ingredient would absolutely never appear in the house. Just as the two were arguing, Belle stepped forward. "Diana had an allergic reaction from eating the walnut pie she brought for me." Seeing the truth revealed, Diana suddenly covered her face and began crying, explaining pitifully while not forgetting to throw mud at Belle. "It's all my fault. Belle used to love eating pastries at the orphanage and would often steal other children's when there wasn't enough, so I bought this to give to her." Belle found this utterly baffling. After hearing this, the Marquis seized upon it like a lifeline. "Everything is still because of Belle. She must have gotten tired of eating it herself and forced Diana to eat the leftovers." The maid also chimed in. "I saw with my own eyes Belle putting her hand into Our Lady's mouth. She must have forced it down her throat." Belle was furious. "I was trying to help her get the food out of her mouth." Edwin and Tara also testified for Belle. "I didn't see Belle force-feeding her anything. Rather, Belle got her face scratched while trying to help her." The Marquis wanted to continue pestering but was stopped by the Duke. "I've tolerated you all until now purely because Diana is Belle's friend, but I hope you won't come again. See them out." The Marquis had no choice but to leave, but Diana wanted to say a final goodbye to Belle. "I'm sorry for accidentally scratching your face just now. Let me heal it for you." As the healing power flowed from her hands, the wound on Belle's face gradually healed. But for some reason, Belle felt an indescribable discomfort, as if insects were crawling on her face. Looking closely, Diana's healing power was actually mixed with a trace of eerie purple. Diana leaned close to Belle's ear and whispered, "You seem to have gotten a bit smarter. Is it because you came to the Duke's mansion in my place? You actually dare to covet what belongs to me now?" Belle looked at her in shock, but Diana simply turned and left. The Marquis angrily instructed Diana, "Remember the humiliation you suffered today. You must repay it double in the future." After Diana left, Belle fell ill. Perhaps it was from overusing her abilities, or perhaps from Diana's provocation. Belle slept for 2 whole days. After recovering from her serious illness, Belle was deeply confused. Why had she seen purple aura around Diana? Very similar to what she had seen around the priest. But Diana was the future saint. She couldn't possibly have an evil aura. In her previous life, becoming a saint to heal the sick and save lives was Diana's lifelong pursuit. Belle felt she shouldn't speculate about her like this, and should focus her attention on the Marquis instead. The Marquis seemed obsessed with Diana's abilities, and he had always wanted to bring down the Duke's family. Belle was extremely wary of him. Soon it would be the goddess's birthday. and in her previous life, Diana's healing power had reached its peak on this day. Although she would be forced to participate in the celebration again, Belle no longer cared about others comparing her to Diana. In this life, she no longer yearned for the position of saint, nor did she hope to stand beside Edwin. She only wanted to repay the Duke's kindness. At that moment, the doctor came to find Belle. He brought good news. The fairy grass had finally been successfully cultivated. Belle stared at the sparse little grass on the ground, speechless. "Are you sure this is successfully cultivated fairy grass? It doesn't even look half as tall as what I picked." The doctor jumped up in anger. "What do you know? Being able to make the legendary rare medicinal herb sprout from the ground is already incredibly great." Although the current yield of fairy grass was very low, Belle had already conceived the first batch of products and the best timing for promotion. The doctor immediately understood. "You mean the goddess's birthday celebration?" The doctor calculated that Diana and Marquis Berlot would definitely attend the celebration that day. Their arrogant behavior during their last visit had greatly annoyed the doctor. To suppress their arrogance, the doctor decided to help Belle. "I'll make you shine at the celebration." As the date approached, the two worked intensively on product development. After Tara tried it, the effects were amazing, attracting many people to inquire. This gave Belle great confidence. Just as Belle was preparing to go out and show her skills, she was mercilessly refused by the butler. "Miss, it's too dangerous for you to go out alone. Please wait until the Duke returns to accompany you." Belle took out her guardian knight teddy bear. "With him protecting me, you can rest assured." At Belle's command, the teddy bear immediately came to life. With a leap, he snatched the butler's bell and crushed it flat with his paws. "I will eliminate all who make things difficult for Belle." The butler didn't dare say another word and quickly arranged a carriage to send Belle off. At the Capital Merchants Association, Belle came here to apply for a patent for her products, but found the hall filled with children. Among them, a boy in a hooded cloak was particularly conspicuous, sitting quietly there with no adults accompanying him. After learning more, Belle discovered the royal family was holding a children's entrepreneurship competition, mainly to discover children with business talent, with a prize of up to 5 million. Belle, who had been uninterested, immediately perked up and actively applied to the staff for registration. If she could win the prize money, it would provide perfect startup capital for her business. But Belle felt an unfriendly gaze from behind and turned to meet the boy's eyes. "He's not already considering himself my competitor, is he?" Belle stared right back, gesturing with her hands. "The prize money will definitely be mine." The boy was stunned for a moment and got up to leave. After finishing all the procedures, Belle suddenly remembered that the boy just now had red hair and green eyes, traits that only royal bloodline possessed. The purer the bloodline, the more vivid the colors. In her previous life, the second prince had always been self-conscious about his brown hair and dark green eyes, and the child just now was very likely Crown Prince Caesar. But why would he appear here alone? According to the original plot, the Crown Prince was attacked by assassins sent by the Queen while executing a secret mission on the eve of the goddess's birthday, severely injured and near death. Later, he secretly contacted Marquis Berlot to have Diana heal him. Belle suddenly thought of something and rushed out alone. In her previous life, due to her own stupidity, she had let the Duke and Crown Prince bear the charge of treason. If she could reverse this outcome now, perhaps she could make up for her mistakes and prevent future tragedies. Belle searched frantically and found bloodstains and the Crown Prince's brooch in an alley. Just then, assassins were closing in step by step. The current queen controlled the royal family internally and could threaten the Crown Prince at any time. The young Crown Prince, in order to cultivate his own forces, had specifically disguised his identity to hold the children's entrepreneurship competition, just to select a child with extraordinary talent to grow together with him while exchanging value. Obviously, this information had been leaked, and the Queen had already sent assassins after him. Looking at the boy confronting them with his sword, the assassins showed complete disdain. But the next second, their chests were pierced by the blade. However, the disparity in strength was too great. Just as the assassin's sword was about to strike him down, suddenly a small bear appeared and kicked the assassin away. He grabbed the assassin by the collar. "Hello, I'm Teddy Bear, Miss Belle's guard." The assassins were all stunned by the sudden appearance of the doll. Teddy Bear approached them step by step. "The smell of blood, I love it so much. Let's play together." Before the Crown Prince could react, Belle had already arrived, out of breath. "The assassination mode is so powerful." Belle extended her hand to the Crown Prince, asking about his safety, but he looked at her warily, pushing away her hand and standing up by himself. Seeing he was unharmed, Belle also felt relieved. She summoned Teddy Bear, who had already dealt with all the assassins, and prepared to leave, but the Crown Prince suddenly collapsed. Belle hurried forward to check and saw a hideous wound had appeared on his waist. Seeing the critical situation, Belle suddenly remembered Edwin had once said that Teddy Bear could switch to giant mode. At Belle's command, Teddy Bear instantly transformed into a 5-meter-tall giant. Belle's eyes lit up with excitement. "This is so amazing!" But now wasn't the time to be excited. Teddy Bear held both children in his arms, and Belle instructed him, take the Crown Prince to the open space behind the Merchant Association building. There's heavy foot traffic there, and he'll quickly be discovered and receive treatment. Before that, I'll give him emergency treatment. When Belle returned to the Duke's mansion, her unauthorized outing had already been discovered, and she obediently endured lectures from the Duke, Doctor, and Edwin in turn, promising never to do it again. Over the following days, Belle kept watching the newspapers, but saw no news reports about the Crown Prince being injured. It seemed her actions hadn't affected the normal development of this timeline. Today was the goddess's birthday celebration, and also the day Belle planned to pursue her business and earn money. She abandoned her gorgeous gown and wore only rough cloth clothes she had brought from the orphanage. Putting on the anti-loss bracelet the Duke had specially prepared for her, remembering how in her previous life she had worn a beautiful gown back to the orphanage for the celebration, looking completely out of place with the environment there, earning everyone's cold stares. At the time she didn't know why. Until a child told her, "Your healing power is getting worse and worse, yet you dare dress so showily. How ridiculous." From then on, Belle changed her dressing style, becoming much more modest, but was then labeled as imitating Diana. At that moment, Belle suddenly realized, how did that child know my healing ability was deteriorating? At the time, even I didn't understand the reason, only learning later that my healing power had been stripped away in the confessional. But how did that child know so clearly? Just then, a servant came to invite Belle. "The Duke and young masters would like to have breakfast with you." Belle was somewhat surprised. Usually, everyone was busy with their own affairs, occasionally meeting only at dinner. Having breakfast together was a first. When Belle arrived at the dining room, the father and 3 sons had been waiting for some time. The harmonious atmosphere made Belle feel momentarily dazed. In her previous life, she had also eaten with the Duke and Edwin a few times, but the atmosphere then was always somewhat oppressive. In this life, Joshua was still alive, and everything was developing in a good direction. A small joy welled up in Belle's heart. Her efforts hadn't been in vain after all. At that moment, the Duke noticed Belle's skilled dining etiquette. "I didn't expect the orphanage taught this too?" Belle nodded silently. Actually, these were all taught to Belle by the Duke in her previous life. Because at the orphanage, they could only use crude wooden spoons. Belle had made quite a few embarrassing mistakes when first dining at the Duke's mansion. But the Duke hadn't scolded her. Instead, he patiently taught her how to use each utensil. Belle was still grateful to this day. She was somewhat curious. Is today some special occasion? Why is everyone eating together? Today is indeed an important day. It turned out the Duke already knew Belle was starting her own business and had come specially to cheer her on. According to celebration tradition, nobles would exchange special coins to purchase items made by orphanage children or enjoy their special abilities. The child who earned the most coins would win the championship, while other children's earnings would go to the orphanage. Belle had originally just wanted to use this opportunity to promote her products and tell the Duke about her results later, but the doctor had leaked the news early. At that moment, Edwin raised a question. "Since you possess healing power, why not use your status as a saint candidate to accumulate coins?" But Belle had no confidence in her healing power, especially with Diana also present. She felt she could never surpass her. Hearing this, the Duke's face suddenly turned cold. "Did someone say something to you?" Joshua also comforted Belle timely. "Sister's healing power is the best." The Duke told Belle to relax. "Just do what you want to do." Edwin also firmly stated, "No matter what, I will stand by your side." Moreover, both the Duke and Edwin would attend today to support her. This made Belle feel overwhelmed with gratitude. Only Joshua looked dejected. He had to stay home and continue his recovery treatment. Since she needed to prepare her own stall, Belle set off early for the orphanage. Fortunately, this place was still the same as before, unchanged. As her business partner, the doctor also came to help set up. Having so many things made him exhausted and grumbling. While busy, the doctor was somewhat curious. "You finally come back once. Don't you have any friends coming to see you?" Belle frankly said she had no friends at the orphanage. Just then, a familiar voice suddenly rang out. "Because Miss Belle is a very special child. Would you like to hear her story?" Belle's heart tightened. Belle saw director Laura again. Just one look made her instinctively reject her. When Belle first manifested her healing power at the orphanage, Laura had been caring toward her. "Our Belle is truly amazing." But when Diana displayed stronger abilities, this care immediately transferred, replaced by harsh comparisons. "Belle, what do you have to compare with Diana?" From that moment, Belle's heart began to twist, and inferiority and jealousy started consuming her reason. At that moment, several other teachers also gathered around, examining Belle's plain clothing, and mistakenly thinking she wasn't valued at the Duke's mansion, immediately beginning a new round of mockery. Even her healing of Joshua was said to be stealing Diana's credit. And even the doctor was subjected to ridicule. "You must be a servant of the Duke's house, right? Belle is so pitiful, she doesn't even have a maid. She'll probably be sent back to the orphanage soon." Belle was used to such mockery, but the doctor was not calm. He couldn't tolerate the Duke's most treasured child being treated this way. Belle may not be the most well-behaved child, but her healing power is definitely the strongest. He took out his business card and handed it to Laura. My name is Gordon, the Duke's personal physician. Miss Belle single-handedly healed young Master Joshua, and the Duke values her greatly. Everyone was immediately shocked. The unremarkable old man before them was actually Gordon, the legendary genius of the medical world. With Gordon's support, Belle finally began to fight back. The Duke loves me very much and even gave me this anti-loss bracelet so he can find me quickly when he comes later. Hearing that the Duke was coming soon, Laura immediately changed her expression, fawning and apologizing to Belle repeatedly. Her hypocritical appearance made Belle sick. She didn't want to waste time on these people and waved them away. Gordon thought Belle had backed down, but Belle had already used her healing eyes to see that Laura had been constipated for several days and was now desperately rushing to the bathroom. There's no need to waste energy on such people. I need to focus on my real business now. Gordon found it strange. The orphanage people obviously don't like Belle, so why did they arrange her stall in such a good central location? Just then Diana arrived, immediately greeting Belle warmly. Belle naturally understood the meaning of this arrangement. Her stall was right next to Diana's. Laura clearly wanted her obscurity to highlight Diana's excellence. But what Belle couldn't understand was why Diana in this life was dressed so elaborately. Her dress was even very similar to the one she herself had worn last time. Noticing Belle's inquiring gaze, Diana proactively explained, I originally wanted to dress plainly like you, but the Marquis thought your clothes looked very nice when he saw you last time, so he insisted on buying this for me to wear. I didn't want to disappoint him. Although Diana tried hard to hide her unnaturalness, Belle still noticed her differences from before. She seemed to be deliberately imitating herself. At that moment, Diana noticed Gordon, and immediately said enviously, even the Duke's personal physician is your assistant. You're so lucky, Belle! Gordon immediately clarified. I'm just helping out. Today's products were all prepared by Belle alone. But Diana didn't believe it at all. She pretended to be worried and warned Belle. Having someone help make products is cheating against the rules. You'll be directly disqualified. This immediately caused whispers among the surrounding people. Faced with Diana's malicious speculation, Belle no longer remained silent this time. Not only for herself, but also for Gordon's and the Duke's reputation. She looked directly at Diana, her voice clear. You don't need to worry. I know the rules very well and understand what constitutes violations. Seeing Belle unmoved, Diana immediately explained she was just kindly reminding her, but this only intensified Belle's competitive spirit. Originally, she had just wanted to promote her products, but this time, she wanted to win first place. If you think I cheated, you can report me anytime. But now, let's have a fair and just competition. Seeing Belle's confident appearance, Gordon was very pleased. But soon he couldn't smile because half an hour had passed and their stall hadn't had a single customer. Almost everyone had crowded around Diana's side. Attracted by the promise of experiencing the strongest healing power for just 10 gold coins, the nobles had already surrounded Diana's stall completely. What was even more infuriating was that Marquis Barrelot personally took the field, leading all the nobles to Diana. Gordon was so anxious he was stamping his feet. At this rate, we won't earn a penny, not only losing ourselves, but also embarrassing the Duke. But Belle remained calm. Her products were unique in this world and would definitely attract customers. Suddenly, the crowd parted, and an elegant elderly lady approached, surrounded by guards. It was Lady Yun, the current emperor's aunt. This top figure of high society was exactly Belle's target customer. The Marquis immediately rushed forward, hastily pulling away other people receiving treatment, and obsequiously led Lady Yun to Diana. Belle watched coldly. She could clearly see white flames of life dancing within Lady Yun's body, signs of natural aging. No amount of healing power could defy the laws of life and death. Diana glanced at Belle's empty stall, not hiding her smugness. Belle, are you okay? This abnormal provocation actually exposed her anxiety. To stimulate Diana, Belle put on a brilliant smile. I'm fine. You keep it up. Seeing Belle completely unaffected, Diana's face instantly darkened. By noon, under the scorching sun with rising temperatures, the delicate nobles were already sweating profusely and exhausted. Belle finally began to act. She took out a megaphone and started attracting customers with Gordon's help. The first 10 customers get a free bottle of fatigue-relieving universal potion. This was just a small surprise Belle had prepared. The Marquis sneered after hearing this. He looked down on Belle's behavior of winning people over with small favors. Several nobles were tempted and tentatively tasted it, immediately feeling refreshed and energized. The immediate effects attracted everyone to come over. Seeing customers being stolen by Belle, the Marquis's face grew uglier. He shouted angrily at Belle, "Are you jealous of Diana? You're clearly also a saint candidate. Why don't you compete with Diana in healing power, instead of fooling people with these ridiculous universal potions?" But Belle wasn't angry at all. She actually hoped the Marquis would shout even louder, to attract more attention. The Marquis continued ranting, accusing Belle of exaggerating effects to deceive others, but Belle pointed to the clearly written precautions. This product only relieves fatigue and has minimal healing effects on any diseases or wounds. The Marquis, in his fury, was about to get physical when a cold voice suddenly rang out. "What do you want to do?" The Duke's appearance instantly silenced the entire venue. The Marquis immediately deflated like a punctured balloon and slunk away to the side. Belle was overjoyed to see the Duke and Edwin's arrival. The Duke examined Belle's potions and praised them lavishly upon learning they were all conceived and made by Belle alone. He actively proposed buying some, directly throwing out a bag of gold coins. "I want 100 bottles." Belle felt somewhat overwhelmed. 100 gold coins is the maximum amount each customer can exchange. "If you use it all to buy my potions, won't you be unable to buy other things?" The Duke and Edwin said in unison, "We only want your things." Just then, Lady Yun also came to Belle's side. She had just greeted the Duke when the Marquis interrupted. Lady Yun pushed away his hand, frankly stating that Diana's treatment had no effect on her. As Belle had predicted, healing power was powerless against natural aging. Lady Yun had also learned about Joshua being healed. The Duke took the opportunity to introduce Belle. "It's all thanks to this child's miraculous healing." Learning that Belle was also a saint candidate, Lady Yun became curious about her potions. Edwin thoughtfully offered some. Lady Yun drank it all. "The taste is quite good." Belle seized the opportunity and took out her secret weapon. This is a spray made from extremely rare fairy grass, specially developed for distinguished customers like yourself. It can improve skin aging problems. The noble ladies present were buzzing with discussion. Gordon took the opportunity to promote the magical beauty effects of fairy grass to everyone, making them all eager with anticipation. Driven by curiosity, Lady Yun decided to try it. The fine spray gently caressed her face, and the fresh fragrance was refreshing. She only needed to wait 1 hour to see the effects. But when Lady Yun learned that one bottle of spray cost 50 gold coins, her expression immediately changed. "This is too expensive. A family can only exchange 100 gold coins maximum at the celebration. One of your bottles takes up half." Belle priced it so high precisely to defeat Diana. She needed to earn at least 500 gold coins. Facing Lady Yun's questioning, she confidently guaranteed, "Just 1 hour. If you feel the effects after 1 hour, you pay me 50 gold coins. If you're not satisfied with the results, I won't take a penny." Seeing her so confident, Lady Yun's impression of Belle greatly improved. She appreciated this straightforward personality. "In that case, let's wait and see." Actually, in her previous life, Belle didn't understand Lady Yun's character. Whether this deal could be made depended entirely on luck. During Belle's absence, the stall sold another 50 bottles of universal potions, with total income reaching 200 gold coins. Belle excitedly hugged Edwin. "We're getting closer to our 500 gold coin goal." Belle looked around and noticed the Duke was gone. Edwin explained his father had gone to socialize with the nobles. Belle was curious why he didn't take this opportunity to gather with friends. Edwin stared at the Marquis, whose face was black as a pot. "I need to stay here because there's someone who seems like he wants to cause trouble for you." And just as Edwin predicted, the Marquis was brewing his scheme. Thanks to the Duke and Edwin's network support, Belle's products were selling more and more smoothly. But Director Laura suddenly came to Belle, saying someone had reported her for violating regulations and demanding she pay a fine. Everyone was shocked to hear this. Edwin asked coldly what she meant. Laura unhurriedly took out a celebration service regulation stating that each participant could only have one assistant, and the assistant must be an adult. Edwin was very indignant, pointing at the Marquis who was still attracting customers for Diana. "What about him? He's not Diana's assistant either. Why don't you punish him? The Marquis is just socializing with nobles, while you, young master, helped Belle carry boxes and directly participated in sales activities." Belle saw the Marquis's triumphant expression. It was indeed his doing. To avoid conflict with the director and affect business, Belle had to endure it. Edwin apologetically apologized to her, but Belle knew that without the Duke and Edwin's help, she would definitely be bullied by the Marquis. She comforted Edwin not to feel guilty. "Having your company makes me truly happy. Now go rest and have fun with your friends." As soon as Edwin left, Laura aggressively demanded the 50 gold coin fine. Such an exorbitant demand angered both Belle and Gordon. This was clearly targeting them. Laura arrogantly threatened Belle. "If you don't want to pay, you'll be directly eliminated." Seeing more and more customers gathering, and to prevent them from misunderstanding that there were product quality issues, Belle gritted her teeth and prepared to pay. "I have 50 gold coins here. That should be enough for the fine, right?" Unexpectedly, Lady Yun suddenly appeared and threw a bag of coins at Laura. At this moment, she was radiant, her wrinkles visibly reduced, as if she had become 20 years younger. She warned Laura to leave immediately. "Don't interfere with Belle's business." Seeing Lady Yun's effects were so good, even Belle was somewhat surprised. The noble ladies who had been hesitating also rushed forward, competing to buy fairy grass spray. 10 bottles of spray were quickly sold out, leaving only some universal potions. This was completely beyond Belle's expectations. Sales reached an amazing 700 gold coins. Gordon was overjoyed. "Now we can really slap the Marquis in the face!" With the task completed ahead of schedule, Belle excused herself to go to the bathroom. but secretly came to the orphanage's backyard. Actually, besides promoting her products, Belle had another purpose for attending this celebration: to enter the temple library to research materials. Taking advantage of all staff helping in the square, she infiltrated the empty library and finally found scriptures recording temple history. She wanted to know why she had been reborn and what secrets were hidden about the heart she had lost in her previous life. While reading scriptures recording temple history, she discovered a saint whose situation was extremely similar to hers, Akia. The book recorded that she was the first saint to offer her heart to the goddess and make time flow backward. Long ago, when evil forces invaded the empire, Saint Akia stood on the front lines. She offered her heart to the goddess Aria, who slept at the primordial highland altar, successfully making time flow back 4 years. Using this time, she eliminated demons and evil forces hiding in the dark forest, finally leading the temple to victory. After the war, she returned to the capital with adopted war orphans and established the first orphanage. However, 1 year after the war ended, Achia suddenly died at only 23 years old. It wasn't until her funeral that people discovered she had no heart. The book's records about Achia ended there. Belle was somewhat troubled that as the saint who founded the current era, there was no mention of her cause of death. Fortunately, Achia without a heart could still live for several years, so Belle was slightly relieved. She didn't need to worry about dying immediately. But Achia had offered her heart to the goddess and achieved time reversal. So where did my heart go? Belle noticed the primordial highland altar mentioned in the book where hearts were sacrificed. That was the temple's holy land and might have some clues. But the current Belle was still a child and couldn't possibly go to the primordial highland alone. Belle couldn't help feeling disappointed. She'd have to find another opportunity later. Seeing it was getting late, Belle hurried to leave the library, but unexpectedly encountered a boy being beaten by other children. It was Ismail, who had become mute after being locked in the confessional. Since losing his abilities and becoming mute, Ismail had become a target for other children's bullying, who often found various excuses to abuse and beat him. But in Ismail's view, even such days were 100 times better than being locked in the confessional. Seeing the boy about to collapse, Belle hid in the shadows and shouted, "The teacher is coming!" The children immediately scattered in fright. Belle quickly rushed forward to treat the dying Ismail. Ismail recognized Belle as the child who often played pranks at the orphanage. When the boy learned that Belle had also been locked in the confessional like him, a trace of confusion flickered through his chaotic mind. Why did her eyes still hold light? While he was drowning in the swamp of despair, his desperate will to survive made him grip Belle's wrist tightly, as if clutching at the last straw. "Please, save me." Only then did Belle notice his gray-brown hair and light brown eyes. The boy's appearance gradually overlapped with someone in her memory, Pope Montanus III. In her previous life after the current pope died, the original priest was pushed forward as the most likely successor. But he lacked the papal signet ring and couldn't assume the position. Just when the papal throne remained vacant, the deceased pope's adopted son appeared with the signet ring, claiming to be the new pope. That person was Ismail. He was adopted by the pope in his childhood and became one of the main male lead candidates in the original story, alongside Crown Prince Edwin and the second prince. In her previous life, Belle's impression of Ismail wasn't deep, so she hadn't recognized his identity. Seeing him again, Belle's feelings were complex. In her previous life, just before she prepared for the saint selection ceremony, the newly appointed young pope publicly declared his support for Diana, which made Belle extremely angry, feeling that the temple was deliberately showing favoritism. The Ismail of that time was very dismissive of her, mocking her as just an ordinary orphan. "I can barely sense any Holy Spirit in you. Do you still think you're qualified to compete for sainthood? Look at Diana. She's been healing the sick and fighting monsters on the northern border, while you haven't fulfilled any duties as a saint candidate." At the time, Belle only felt it was unfair, but now she understood why Ismail supported Diana. It was because she knew her power had been stolen, making her completely unsuitable for the position of saint. He had simply made the best choice as pope. After treatment, Ismail gradually regained consciousness. Just then, the broadcast announced that the event was about to end. After confirming that Ismail was fine, Belle was about to leave. When he grabbed the hem of her dress, "Let me repay you," Ismail suddenly spoke. Belle looked at him in shock. He can actually speak? Has he been pretending to be mute all this time? I had no choice. I just wanted to escape from there. You know what I'm talking about. You've always wanted to defeat Diana, haven't you? I'll help you become the saint, Belle. After returning to the ceremony venue, Belle breathed a sigh of relief. If she hadn't encountered the Duke, she would have barely made it back in time. Watching the Duke run frantically while holding her, disregarding his image, Belle clearly realized that she wasn't doing this for anything else. She simply wanted to win, so she absolutely couldn't lose. She had to become the Duke's pride. Gordon proudly told Belle that during her absence, a child in a cloak had spent 100 gold coins and left a note for Belle. "This is the treatment fee. See you next time." Belle immediately thought of the Crown Prince, but today was supposed to be the day Diana and the second prince met for the first time. Yet the second prince hadn't appeared until now. Had it been the crown prince instead? At this moment, Pope Montanus appeared to host the ceremony. After his speech, they began counting the gold coins the children had earned. As bags of gold coins were poured into special containers, the numbers immediately appeared above them. As the results were announced one by one, Belle's heart grew increasingly tense. Diana, 770 gold coins. This result caused gasps throughout the venue, and people began congratulating Diana on her anticipated first place. Belle, 952 gold coins, first place. With the final result announced, Belle finally achieved her goal. But the Marquise exploded in rage. "This is impossible! Diana earned at least 870 gold coins. Someone must have stolen her money." The Marquis looked extremely serious, not seeming to deliberately cause trouble. Since the ceremony used specially made coins that couldn't circulate outside, it couldn't have been the nobles. People began discussing among themselves, and suspicion naturally fell on the participating children. Just then, Headmistress Laura suddenly urged the Marquess to wait until after the ceremony to investigate, but the Pope frowned and insisted on finding the truth immediately. Hearing this news, Laura's face turned ashen. The Pope personally checked each participant's income details, and suddenly called out to Belle, "I'm not suspecting you, but according to the detailed records, you're the only child who earned 100 gold coins twice." Among these two customers, one was the Duke, and the other's identity is unknown. "Can you tell us who this person is?" Belle found herself in a dilemma. She knew that person must be the crown prince, but he had deliberately hidden his identity for a reason. Her silence appeared as guilt to the Marquess. "Since you can't say who it is, you must have stolen it." The Marquise accused her indiscriminately, using such dirty methods just to win. People began discussing among themselves, even implicating the Duke, saying he was actually sponsoring such a malicious girl. The Duke couldn't sit still anymore. He walked toward the Marquise with a cold expression. "Today everyone saw you watching Belle while attracting customers for Diana. Are you now bragging about being an idiot who can't even guard a stall properly? Or are you saying my child could steal 100 gold coins right under your nose?" The Duke's counterattack made the Marquise tremble with rage. But given their difference in status, he didn't dare to act out. The Pope timely stopped the dispute and bent down to comfort Belle, asking her to tell the truth. Just as Belle was about to speak, a voice suddenly came from the crowd. "I gave those 100 gold coins." The person removed his cloak, revealing red hair that symbolized royal bloodline. It was indeed the crown prince. "I haven't been feeling well lately. I heard there were fatigue-relieving potions here, so I specially bought 100 bottles to try." He explained that he hid his identity to avoid disrupting the ceremony's progress with a sudden visit. Just then, the Pope's assistant discovered another anomaly. Belle had actually paid 50 gold coins in fines, far exceeding the 10 gold coin limit for others. After careful verification, an even more outrageous truth emerged. The actual fines received were less than recorded in the ledger, indicating Laura had been embezzling fines all along. Just as the Pope announced he would severely punish her, Laura suddenly confessed. "The Marquis instructed me to find Belle more, and gave me 100 gold coins after the event ended. I thought this was payment from the Marquis." The Marquis vehemently denied it, accusing Laura of lying and claiming he absolutely never gave her 100 gold coins. The two turned on each other, creating chaos at the scene. In the end, the Pope imprisoned Laura, and the Marquise was also taken away for disrupting the ceremony. This matter was finally resolved, and Belle received 952 genuine gold coins as her reward. Finally, under the joint hosting of the Pope and Crown Prince, Belle gave her acceptance speech on stage, thanking everyone who helped her and all the customers who bought her products, moving Gordon to tears. After the ceremony ended successfully, the Duke had to leave early on business, leaving Belle to handle the aftermath alone. But just then, Diana suddenly called out to her. Although Diana appeared to congratulate Belle on the surface, her words were tinged with resentment. Belle finally saw clearly that the seemingly pure and kind Diana had always worn a hypocritical mask. She no longer needed to yield to her everywhere due to guilt from her previous life. Now she could finally break free from the shackles of the past. At this moment, Belle noticed Ismail in the distance. She immediately abandoned Diana and chased after him. Reaching a secluded area, Belle directly questioned whether he had done something to the Marquis. She had keenly sensed that when Laura previously claimed the Marquis gave her 100 gold coins, the Marquis truly seemed to have no recollection of it. More importantly, when Ismail had offered to help Belle defeat Diana earlier, his words seemed to contain some strange power. Fortunately, Belle noticed in time and directly refused him. Ismail's surprised expression at that moment further convinced Belle of her suspicion. Ismail must have used his ability to do something. Indeed, as Belle suspected, Ismail did possess the ability to manipulate others' memories. Although the duration was brief, the controlled person was completely unaware. He had originally planned to help Belle win the competition in exchange for her taking him away from the orphanage, but he never expected that Belle would not only be immune to his ability but also win the competition through her own strength. Belle completely understood why Ismail did this. After all, they had both suffered greatly in the orphanage. Although she knew Ismail would become pope in the future, Belle still decided to help him escape his suffering early. "I'll find a way to help you leave the orphanage." Hearing this, tears instantly filled the boy's eyes. But just then, Edwin suddenly appeared. He stared at Ismail with anger and hostility. He pulled Belle behind him protectively. "Did that guy do anything to you?" The inexplicable anger confused Belle. She explained that Ismail was her friend, but seeing the tension escalating between the two, to prevent the situation from worsening, Belle suddenly hoisted Edwin up and ran away under Ismail's shocked gaze. On the way back, Edwin asked Belle when she had made such a friend. "That kind of person doesn't deserve to be your friend." Belle found it strange. Today was clearly their first meeting, so why was Edwin so hostile toward Ismail? It seemed like they had known each other for a long time. Had they met before? In the carriage, seeing Edwin's continued silence, Belle realized he was truly angry this time. Although Edwin wasn't blaming her at all, Belle still felt she was wrong. "I'm sorry." The girl's apology surprised Edwin. He helplessly explained that Belle had done nothing wrong. And he wasn't angry about this incident either. He just couldn't understand why the Crown Prince would so generously spend 100 gold coins upon first meeting Belle. And when Belle gave her acceptance speech, she specifically thanked the Crown Prince but didn't mention him. Recalling how Edwin had silently accompanied her throughout the day, Belle suddenly realized she indeed shouldn't have done that. She repeatedly apologized to Edwin, explaining that thanking the Crown Prince was just to use him for product promotion. In her heart, Edwin was the most important. These words instantly dissipated the boy's displeasure. He pulled Belle close, letting her rest on his shoulder. "You're tired today. Rest for a while." Belle saw Edwin like this for the first time, kinder and more lovable than in her previous life. A few days later, Belle excitedly came to the Duke's office and presented him with a business plan. The successful sales of her products at the ceremony had given Belle great confidence. She planned to cultivate fairy grass on a large scale for production and open a specialty store in the city center. But completing these plans required the Duke's support. "Tell me, how much do you want?" Belle extended her small hand. 5 million. The Duke didn't respond immediately, but handed Belle an invitation from the royal family, inviting Belle, the first-place winner of the children's entrepreneurship competition, and her guardian Gordon to the palace. Belle suddenly remembered she had submitted an application to the Capital Merchants Association that day. She had completely forgotten about it, but unexpectedly won first place, and the prize money was exactly 5 million. She had been afraid the Duke would object, so she had written Gordon's name as the guardian. This made the Duke jealous. "Belle, Gordon can't provide you with a shop in the city center." Under the Duke's coercion and persuasion, Gordon reluctantly signed the guardian transfer agreement. So the next day, the Duke personally brought Belle to the palace. It was the girl's first time at the palace, and the Duke held her securely in his arms in a protective posture. The curious glances from all around made Belle somewhat embarrassed, and she wanted to walk by herself. The Duke matter-of-factly stated, "I'm your guardian. What's wrong with holding you?" Actually, ever since entering the palace, Belle's body had been trembling slightly, because this place held her most terrifying memories from her previous life. But now, being in the Duke's embrace made her feel very secure. When the Crown Prince saw Belle and the Duke appear together, he was somewhat surprised. "How is the Duke here? Wasn't the guardian supposed to be Gordon?" The Duke immediately produced the guardian transfer agreement he carried with him. "It's been changed to me now." The Crown Prince had never seen the Duke care so much about someone. He couldn't help but tease. "Your protective instinct is too strong. Others might think Belle is your illegitimate daughter." The Duke replied nonchalantly, "Belle is indeed like a daughter to me." The Duke's frank words made Belle panic, wanting only to interrupt this inexplicable confrontation. The Crown Prince changed the subject. "I haven't properly greeted you yet. Belle, we meet again. And the teddy bear too." Hearing teddy bear, the Duke immediately realized that the ceremony wasn't the first meeting between the Crown Prince and Belle. Before that, he had also seen Belle activate the teddy bear. "Did you encounter some dangerous situation?" Belle also realized and immediately confessed to the Duke that she had indeed met the Crown Prince before. "Were you in danger then?" Seeing the Duke getting more serious, the Crown Prince helplessly explained that meeting Belle that day was purely accidental. Understanding the full story, the Duke forgave Belle, but he insisted on participating in the following conversation as her guardian. "We still need to wait for the other first-place winner who tied with you." But the next second, a servant reported that there was an urgent meeting requiring the Duke's attendance. The Duke was furious. Before leaving, he repeatedly instructed Belle, "Hold the teddy bear tight. I'll be back soon." After the Duke left, the Crown Prince curiously asked Belle, "Doesn't the Duke give you pocket money?" Seeing her confused expression, the Crown Prince explained, "You seemed very eager for that prize money that day, didn't you?" Belle was extremely embarrassed and immediately bowed to apologize for her rudeness. The Crown Prince laughed until tears came out, explaining he was just joking, and was very grateful for Belle's help that day. Otherwise, he might already be dead. A servant looked at the teddy bear in Belle's arms curiously. "Is this the doll that saved His Highness?" Belle took the opportunity to introduce it. "This is a guardian knight specially bestowed upon me by the Duke to protect me. It's just that the assassination mode was activated that day, so it looked somewhat frightening." At this moment, the Crown Prince signaled for a servant to bring a document, a contract for an entire commercial building in the city center. This was his thank you gift to Belle, but he had one condition. This competition was originally a cover for the Crown Prince to cultivate his influence. He needed Belle to help him collect noble intelligence through the shop and help manage secret funds. As the Crown Prince, he could only seek partners himself, showing how precarious his position in the palace was. But Belle didn't want to get involved in such dangerous matters. She politely declined. This was within the Crown Prince's expectations, and he expressed understanding. "In that case, I'll look for the other winner then." But just then, a servant received an urgent telegram from the other winner. The Garagos Trading Company's ship had encountered a sea monster on its return voyage and might not reach the palace today. Madolf Garagos. Hearing this name, Belle's entire body trembled with terror. In her previous life, she had been deceived by this person's lies and committed a mistake she regretted for life. The Crown Prince must have trusted this person especially because of this competition. Never expecting to eventually face betrayal, Belle was immersed in painful memories, tears streaming down her face without realizing it. The Crown Prince was startled and frantically tried to comfort her. Just then, the door was suddenly pushed open. Edwin stood panting in the doorway. He rushed toward Belle. "Father contacted me to come find you. Belle, are you all right?" Seeing Edwin's anxious appearance, Belle was confused. What's wrong with him? Edwin took Belle's hand and was about to take her home. Only when he saw the Crown Prince did he realize his impropriety, and explained that he was just too worried about Belle. Belle originally hadn't planned to interfere with the Crown Prince's choice. After all, the original story's direction wasn't so easily changed. But a voice in her heart told her, "Don't be a coward. Since you've decided to change things, you must persist to the end." Belle stopped and looked at the Crown Prince. "If you can cancel the tie and make me the sole winner, I'll consider agreeing to your proposal." The Crown Prince was overjoyed. Telling Belle not to be so formal from now on, they were friends. Edwin watched the two interact intimately with obvious displeasure. Temporarily resolving the Crown Prince's future crisis gave Belle relief, but her joyful expression made Edwin extremely jealous. "Are you that happy? I was worried sick when I rushed here. Were you worried I'd anger the Crown Prince and cause trouble for the Duke's family?" Edwin sighed helplessly and took out a handkerchief to gently wipe her cheek. "I was worried about you. You're so outstanding. It's not surprising the Crown Prince wants to win you over, but I don't want you to have any involvement with the royal family. They only bring trouble." "Then why are you wiping my face?" "Because someone else touched it. But you're touching it too? That's different. We're family." Belle was stunned. In her previous life, Edwin had said the same thing. Had the Duke's family already come to see her as family? This warmth made her both grateful and apprehensive, fearing she wasn't worthy of such passionate affection. Just then, an uninvited guest suddenly appeared. Edwin's nerves instantly tensed. Belle took one look, and nightmares from her previous life flooded back like a tide. It was the second prince who had personally carved out her heart. Accompanying him was Diana. The second prince looked at Belle with contempt. "Is this the fake saint candidate sponsored by the Duke's family?" Belle trembled and hid behind Edwin. Feeling her fear, Edwin gripped her hand tightly and stepped forward to confront the second prince. "You call her a fake saint candidate? Are you questioning the Duke's choice?" The second prince's expression immediately became uncomfortable. "I was just speaking casually." Seeing him like this, Belle's fear temporarily subsided. Diana approached with feigned friendliness, claiming she was sent by the queen to treat the Crown Prince's injuries. She smugly asked Belle, "Did the Duke bring you to the palace to play?" "I won first place in the children's entrepreneurship competition. The Crown Prince invited me here." Diana's face changed dramatically. Even the second prince was quite surprised, asking teasingly, "How did she gain the Crown Prince's favor?" Edwin struggled to control his anger. Belle quietly shook her head at him. Then the second prince suddenly pointed at the teddy bear. "I heard from Mother that this thing of yours saved the Crown Prince. Ever since hearing about the teddy bear from the assassin, he's been obsessed with it. Give it to me to play with later, just." Then, Belle caught a glimpse of familiar purple flames. That eerie feeling was identical to what she sensed from the priest and Diana. Such frequent appearances made Belle feel it was necessary to investigate thoroughly. Belle treated Joshua as usual, under her careful care and Gordon's special medications. Joshua's hereditary heart condition showed marked improvement. The orange flames on his chest gradually weakened as well. Only the daily bitter medicine made his little face turn green. Belle encouraged Joshua to take his medicine properly to prevent the disease from recurring. Gordon's eyes immediately lit up upon hearing this. "Thank you for the boss's recognition. My skills are nothing compared to yours." Ever since Belle entrusted the prize money to Gordon's management, Gordon's attitude toward her had become increasingly respectful. Seeing Joshua bored at home, Belle promised to take him out to play once he fully recovered. When Belle came to the Duke's office, Servant Logan was reporting on the recent monster attacks. After handling official business, the Duke asked Belle, "I heard you gave all the prize money to Gordon?" "Yes, he helped me a lot. This is what he deserves." The Duke approvingly ruffled her hair, then gave her a checkbook, telling her to freely use the funds to select suitable shops. This shocked Logan greatly. "Duke, you've already given her payment for treating the young master. Why give her so much more money? Even Miss Diana hasn't received this much?" The Duke's expression darkened. "Belle is the saint candidate sponsored by the Duke's family. What's wrong with me giving her money? Caston and Sven have already disappointed me. I don't want you to follow in their footsteps." Although Logan's words weren't pleasant, Belle felt they weren't unreasonable. She indeed had no reason to take so much money. "Actually, the Crown Prince has already promised to give me an entire building." She revealed the Crown Prince's attempt to win her over. The Duke immediately understood the Crown Prince wanted to gain the Duke's support through Belle. He saw this as an opportunity for Belle to learn asset management. He arranged professional teachers for Belle to familiarize herself first, and reminded her to rest when tired. "I want you to both study and grow up happily like an ordinary child. Edwin is too mature for his age, keeping everything bottled up inside. I feel very ashamed as a father." Belle asked about Caston and Sven. The Duke sighed. "After my wife died, I was depressed for a long time and didn't manage household affairs. Logan proactively took over everything then, including recommending Caston and Sven for their positions. This was my oversight. I never expected them to turn out that way." After leaving the office, Belle still felt something was odd. Why did Caston and Sven both change so drastically later? Just then, Logan suddenly blocked Belle's path, startling her. He asked directly, "What do you plan to use the checkbook for?" But in Belle's eyes, Logan was burning with eerie purple flames. Seeing this, Belle was instantly horrified. Logan wore a false smile. "Are you trembling?" Belle didn't answer, wanting only to quickly escape from the man. She never imagined that Logan, as the Duke's personal attendant, would emanate such intense purple flames. The evil aura was so strong that Belle wasn't sure she could purify it. Even more terrifying, she vaguely sensed some ominous energy gathering toward the Duke's estate. "I can't just sit and wait. It's time to take action." Over the next few days, Belle dragged Edwin around the Duke's estate to observe. Fortunately, besides Logan, none of the other servants showed similar auras. But Logan's presence was like a ticking time bomb that had to be removed from the Duke's estate. However, she currently had neither concrete evidence nor a suitable reason. Belle asked the butler about Logan's background, learning he had started working for the Duke 5 years ago. The Duke's previous assistant, Jester, had suddenly died, and Logan hurriedly took over the position. Since Logan had received scholarship support from the Duke's family while studying, he worked particularly hard, always saying he wanted to repay the Duke's kindness. The butler also mentioned that Logan was also from the temple orphanage. This shocked Belle. Recalling her first treatment of Joshua, when she returned to the orphanage, the priest knew everything about what happened at the Duke's estate. As if someone was feeding him information. Could Logan be the temple's mole planted in the Duke's estate? The more Belle thought about it, the more frightened she became. Logan arranged for Sven to teach Edwin and Caston to care for Joshua. Every step seemed designed to interfere with the Duke family's future. The Duke family's decline in her previous life had its seeds planted at this very time. Seeing Belle's suddenly pale face, the butler hurried forward with concern. Belle explained she was fine. She jumped down from her chair. She had to go to the orphanage immediately to verify her suspicions. To avoid unnecessary worry, she needed to report before going out. But the Duke wasn't there, so Belle went to find Edwin. Looking at the empty room, Belle could only leave a note. "I'm going to play with friends at the orphanage." By the time Edwin finished his bath and saw the note, Belle had long disappeared. "She's not going to see that guy, is she?" When Belle reached the orphanage, she found new headmaster Magnus and priest Saren had replaced the old staff. After brief pleasantries, Belle went directly to find Ismail. The girl's sudden appearance startled him. Belle inquired about his recent situation and helped treat the wounds on his face. "Are those children still bullying you? Do you want me to teach them a lesson?" Ismail shook his head in refusal. "It's useless. After you leave, they'll retaliate even more viciously." Only then did Belle realize how reckless her suggestion was. Then Belle lowered her voice. "Do you know of anything purple-related in the temple?" Ismail looked at her and sighed helplessly. "Haven't you read the scriptures? Purple symbolizes heretics who serve demons." Ismail found the scriptures, which recorded that heretics worshipping demons used purple black magic. This evil power could make innocent lives wither and bring chaos to the world. Belle couldn't accept this. It was completely beyond her expectations. Seeing the girl's serious expression, Ismail also had a bad feeling. "You haven't seen something, have you? But those heretics were wiped out long ago." Since she wasn't certain yet, Belle forced herself to stay calm and pretend nothing happened. But based on the scripture records, Sven, Logan, and the second prince were likely all heretics. As for Diana, Belle had always felt an inexplicable discomfort and rejection toward her. Could this be the reason? In her previous life, her healing power was stripped away, so she never discovered this secret. Now, she was the only one who could see the purple flames. Seeking help from others would be difficult. The most urgent matter was still resolving Logan's problem. She had to find concrete evidence to legitimately drive him from the Duke's estate. Just then, Ismail told Belle another shocking discovery. He leaned close to Belle's ear and whispered. When the priest was arrested, the confessional was also closed. But I discovered someone seems to be using it again. Hearing this, Belle nearly cried out. But Ismael quickly covered her mouth. Recently, children with special abilities keep being taken away and never return. Belle felt chilled to the bone. Are there still people in the temple stealing children's abilities? Just then, the room door was suddenly pushed open. New headmaster Magnus stood in the doorway. What are you two doing? Belle forced herself to stay calm, unsure if he had heard their conversation. We're playing house. I'm the mother, Ismael is the father, and this teddy bear is our child. Magnus examined the teddy bear and suddenly asked, but I clearly heard two people talking from outside? Both children were startled. Did he discover Ismael? Belle's mind raced and she said in an exaggerated tone, that must have been my voice. I was pretending to be Ismael talking. She then took the boy's hand and used two different voices to play both roles, performing a self-directed scene. Her acting was natural with genuine emotion, even stunning Magnus. Taking this opportunity, Belle quickly wrote in Ismael's palm, memory manipulation. Ismael instantly understood. Belle wanted him to use his ability to control Magnus. Seeing Belle being so talkative, Magnus also chatted with her. I felt very close to you the moment I saw you, because I also grew up in this orphanage. I even have a good friend working at the Duke's estate. A friend? Who is it? His name is Logan. Belle's expression became somewhat strange. What an unexpected gain. The person colluding with Logan had just exposed himself. Belle looked at Ismael. Now! Before Magnus could react, Ismael had already reached out like lightning. The boy's low voice rang out like an incantation. Now! Obey my command! The next second, Magnus's eyes immediately became vacant, standing there like a puppet. Ismael breathed a sigh of relief. Next time you're this impulsive, you must tell me in advance. But why did you do this? I want you to control him to write an urgent letter to Logan, telling him to come to the orphanage tomorrow without fail. Belle also had Ismael control him again tomorrow, to keep Logan there as long as possible. Although he didn't understand Belle's intention, Ismael agreed. Before leaving, Belle thanked him for today's help, telling him to wait patiently. She would definitely keep her promise. Soon, Logan received the urgent letter. After reading it, he immediately burned it. Though puzzled, he still boarded the carriage. Watching Logan leave the Duke's estate, Belle immediately ran to his room. She had to find evidence of his heretical activities before Logan returned, but her every move was being watched. Belle searched the room for a long time. Except for a locked drawer she couldn't open, she found no useful evidence. Just as she was about to give up, her gaze was suddenly drawn to a painting on the wall. It depicted Saint Aquia's war against demons. After observing for a while, Belle suddenly discovered a hidden cabinet behind the painting. It was filled with jars containing various animal corpses. Belle nearly vomited from disgust, finally found some useful evidence. But just then, she heard the sound of the door opening. Belle hastily hid under the desk, curling up into a ball. How did Logan return so quickly? As footsteps drew closer, Belle was horrified to discover her hair was actually showing. Your hair is sticking out. If you're going to hide, do it properly. Hearing the familiar voice, Belle peeked out. It was Edwin. What are you doing in Logan's room? I was just curious. But what are you doing here? Don't you have sword training today? Edwin's gaze was evasive. I came to find something. He then tried to push Belle out. Now that you've satisfied your curiosity, let's leave quickly. This isn't a place you should be. How could this work? Belle immediately grabbed Edwin's hand. Aren't you looking for something? I'll help you find it. Her big, watery eyes were full of pleading, and her adorable appearance left Edwin defenseless. He had no choice but to agree. Then help me find a text written in ancient language. Belle nodded excitedly, then became confused. Why does Edwin need to find such a thing? They searched for a long time but found nothing. Belle began to doubt her judgment. Is Logan not a heretic after all? Time was running out, and Belle had to leave. Just then, something seemed strange. This painting depicts Saint defeating the demon and achieving victory. Generally, the victorious side would be painted at the top, with the demon painted below. But this painting is exactly the opposite. Not only that, the demon in the painting is smiling, while the saint's spear is broken. It feels like the saint lost to the demon. This painting is clearly blasphemous. Belle shared her confusion with Edwin. Edwin stepped forward to examine it, and discovered the painting had 2 layers. As the first layer of paper was torn away, what was hidden underneath was finally revealed. Lines of blood-red ancient text appeared. Those who believe in the goddess, their limbs severed. They suffer greatly, they weep and seek mercy, yet ultimately murdered their goddess with their own hands, descending into hell. While we shall cry out for ourselves, worshipping our true goddess.